The Town Board regular meeting, Roseville, March 1st, 2022. If we would, everybody rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sheila, would you lead us?
Can we bow our heads for prayer? Most gracious Father, we thank you first of all for a new day, for health in our bodies, in our minds, and our soul. We know that we can't do this without you, so we ask for your grace and your mercy as we listen tonight with open hearts and open minds and make great decisions for Roseville. We ask you to also bless our community, every family that's represented here and every family that's listening and represented here in Roseville. We also, God, ask you to look over our military, our police, our fire, our first responders, that you would bless each and every one of them as they go to protect our communities. And I also ask you to look over Ukraine in that situation, God. You know best, and we just ask that you intervene. But help us on tonight to make good decisions for our citizens here in Roseville and bless every family represented. In your Son, Jesus' name, I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Commissioner. Welcome to everybody in the building here and also everybody that's listening in and watching online. Welcome to the March Town Board meeting. We are first meeting since Wake County lifted the mask mandate. And I think the state, the governor recently in the last couple of weeks, put out some statements on the mask. Here in Roseville, ours was lifted along with Wake County. But I would just want to make everybody think about, we may not be completely out of this situation, so just be careful. If you feel like you're in a situation you need to wear a mask, please do. Recommend doing it in some situations if the situation is warranted. So just keep that in mind. Let's keep. We've done really good in Roseville. I think Roseville is one of the lowest areas in the county when it comes to the numbers with the mask and the actual cases. So let's continue to do that. And looks like we may be hopefully getting this thing behind us. So thank you and appreciate everybody's work that's got it this far. Do have a couple of proclamations tonight I want to read and enter to the record. The first one has to do with Disability Awareness Month, Developmental Disability Awareness Month. So it reads, whereas developmental disability is a diverse group of chronic conditions that are due to mental and physical impairments that arise before adulthood, and whereas the condition is likely to continue indefinitely and limits the individual in 3 or more of the following areas: self-care, receptive and expressive language, learning, mobility, self-direction, capacity for independent living, and economic self-sufficiency. And whereas the condition creates the individual's need for a combination of special, interdisciplinary services, individual personal center supports, and other forms of long-term assistance that are individually planned and coordinated. Whereas the disability experience is a natural part of life and is a valued part of our rich diversity. And whereas disability is a social construct, the problem is not a medical condition that resides within the individual, but a problem in the society that does not create a welcoming, a supporting, inclusive environment with policies, systems for all to promote equality and acceptance in all areas of life, including schools, places of employment, and communities. Whereas the most effective way to increase awareness is through everyone's openness to learn and the knowledge that there are symptomatic barriers that reduce the likelihood of those with disabilities in enjoying equitable experiences and living independent, productive lives within our community. And whereas policies must be developed, attitudes shaped, equality experiences to be offered to all individuals, including those with developmental disabilities. And whereas citizens should do all in their power to do the following: recognize the value of a disability experience in our lives and value the role it has in our rich diversity. Recognize the barriers presented to those with disabilities across all aspects of life. Create ways to include everyone, especially with developmental disabilities, to be fully included in all aspects of life. Understand the losses of financial, spiritual, human rights, contributions to the community, and otherwise when communities segregate and create barriers for those with disabilities. Demand policymakers to no longer invest in segregation and create inclusive equality policies and systems for all. So now, therefore, I, Ronnie Kern, Mayor of Roseville, together with the Town Board, Roseville Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim March 2022 as Developmental Disability Awareness Month and galvanize efforts that will lead our communities and policymakers to create real system changes so people with developmental disabilities will be able to enjoy equitable and inclusive lives. So let's put that in record. Thanks, Robin, for investigating that and bringing that to our attention, because we do have people in our community that this really shows appreciation for those folks and our awareness of their needs and to be including them in activities. The other proclamation is Arbor Day, which is this month, and I'm going to read this one. Paul is usually the champion of Arbor Day, so I will yield to him if he wants to say something to end. But this one reads, whereas in 1972, Nebraska Board of Agriculture established a special day to set aside for planting of trees, and whereas the holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can be a solution of combating climate change by reducing the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cutting heating and cooling costs, moderating the temperature, cleaning the air, and producing life-giving oxygen, and providing habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products, and whereas trees in our cities increase property values, enhance economic viability of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Therefore, I, Ronnie Kern, Mayor of Roseville, together with the Town Roseville Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim March 19th, 2022 as Arbor Day and the Town of Roseville, and I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And furthermore, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden our hearts and promote the well-being of this and future generations. And I know if you kind of look at our website, our Parks and Recreation Department, Arbor Day Celebration is Saturday, March the 19th from 1 to 3, Main Street Park, Shelter D. I don't think JG is going to. You're going to have a report this afternoon, so you'll cover this in your report. So we'll leave it there, but it is a celebration that we do each year in honoring to that once a month thing. So appreciate that. Thank you, Board, for allowing me a few minutes to cover those two items. Any thoughts or questions from the Board on either one of the proclamations that we just assigned you?
Regarding the Arbor Day one, I just want to emphasize I appreciate us, recognizing it as a town and everything else, and also want to say, it takes seconds to take down a tree and takes years to grow it. So we need to put that into our thoughts and our LDO as well.
And I think, you mentioned LDO. I think we beefed it up a little bit for trees and
we'll
stuff.
add more.
We have a tree plan,
Yeah, we do.
whereas we didn't before.
We supposed to get a tree committee or something at some point in time, I think, right? So, that'd be a new effort for town too when we do that. I see the legal department shaking their head there, so.
That would be great.
All right, well, thank you, appreciate that, board. The agenda, reviewed agenda, is any additional changes or items made to the new business to the agenda that we need to consider tonight? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, we have a short agenda tonight, and I was wondering if you would entertain letting us do a update on the American Rescue Plan
Sure.
at the end tonight, and if so, that would be, we're ready for that presentation.
Would that come under communications, or you want to move it up earlier than communications?
I think you could put it on as a regular agenda item if you
Okay.
want to.
All right. So we'll put it regular agenda item. Looks like in C3, is that where you want to put it?
Sure, thank you.
So we'll add C3 as an update. Any other thoughts or questions on the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda as established, Mayor.
Okay.
I'll second.
So got a motion second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not hearing any unanimously. Thank you, board. Now, liaison reports, the first one, Paul, Bilger Parks and Recreation. Any news from that group?
We discussed potential parkland in Chandler's Ridge. It's still ongoing. The board received an update on Cobblestone Community Center. Future planning for the farm, they're still talking about what to bring forward to the board. There was also discussion about the Greenway and Bicycle Plan and some changes we'd like to see. And just wanted to emphasize, I'd like to have everybody come out for that Arbor Day Celebration. That was discussed at that meeting, and it's on a Saturday this year. It's not during normal hours. It's a nice time. It's not during work hours. It's on a Saturday. It'd be nice to have everybody come out and celebrate with everybody.
What time is the meeting?
It's 1 to 3 on Saturday.
Is this the meeting or the Arbor Day?
March
event?
19th meeting, or the March 19th Arbor Day. Yeah,
So it's 1 to 3?
1 to 3, yep,
How many, what are they, seedlings, right?
yeah.
How many are you going to have? And what type of trees are you going to
I'll
have?
have to ask
He's
JG.
going to give us
Yeah,
an
he'll give us a
update.
report
Oh,
on that.
Jay.
And I guess I'm asking that too, like maybe, because I've gone and it's always, one person indoor, one out. Maybe do something like to excite people to go, or while they're there, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think he has stuff planned for it, so,
Okay.
yeah. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next item, economic development. I know it's a lot of good stuff going on there, so I heard about some of it. So, Commissioner Sutton, you want to give an update on that?
Sure. Thank you, Paul, for saving me a little time. So economic development update, actually, there's a lot going on in Roseville. So you've probably noticed that things are moving along in the Roseville community. We continue to get residential development, and that will continue to come. But as you know, Cobblestone is still moving along at Main Street and Young. You see the fence up. Also, the Publix mixed use across from Bojangles. I am clarifying this for the public because I've heard that Publix is going to be at Main and Young. It's not. It's going to be across from Bojangles. We'll start next year in 2023. And also, you will see across from the Food Line Shopping Center, we have our first 3-story office building going up in Roseville. And that's going to have, I believe, dental and vision, those type of offices in it. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see this happen because I was on the board before we had these developments. So it's kind of nice to see that commercial coming on. We're getting excited about that. But our newest group, called the Roseville Downtown Development Association, or as I affectionately call it, RDDA, we met last Friday and had some great discussion. This group is a group of volunteer citizens. We're focused on helping with the development of Roseville's downtown area. We meet monthly now at lunchtime, and we're meeting right now here at the town. So I'm excited that we're back in person. And we have the support of our staff, namely Michael McFarland, our Community and Economic Development Manager. I wrote that down so I could get it right here. And our mayor is very supportive, Ronnie Kern, thank you. This group consists of business owners from Main Street and other engaged Roseville citizens. We were able to get an update this time from our Open Space and Greenway Committee, also known as OSAG, because we have a lot of areas where we intersect. So Mr. Derek Verstegen, who I believe is here tonight, came and gave us a great update. So I just love the fact that we have a lot of engaged citizens that care about Roseville and doing some awesome things. And I serve as a liaison to the group, so I continue to provide Michael with updates about companies to reach out to and check the interest, and we connect regularly about marketing Roseville, so I'm really excited about that. Also, I want to mention that our Roseville Chamber continues to do phenomenal things in our town, in and for our town, and around the Triangle. Recently, there was a business after hours held at Greenway Beer and Wine. I was not able to attend, but I tell you, my board members stepped up. I think April, Commissioner Sneed was there, Commissioner Medley was there, the mayor attended. So thank you all so much for supporting in my stead. I really appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So the last thing is we have a field trip. I love field trips. I'm always pushing the board. Get out of our bubble. Let's go on a field trip. So we are actually going on a field trip. The mayor, myself, and some of our staff members, we're going to Morrisville this coming Friday to learn more about their economic development efforts. So more to come in Roseville. We're still trying to be responsible, but we need this commercial growth. The residents alone can't do it unless y'all want us to raise your taxes, which I'm sure that answer is no. So that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good
You're
report.
welcome.
Appreciate that. Commissioner Medley, anything from Planning Board?
Oh, yeah, not really, only because I was put out of the meeting, but for a good cause. They had there is a case that's going to be coming before us, and it was best that I not be there because, you know, I would have asked a lot of questions and got myself into some trouble. So I did leave. So that was with the Wade Pulte subdivision, I believe. Other than that, we went through most of the agenda before I left. And, you know, they were informed about the dinner that's coming up. They were asked about training. And really, that's all I got out of it that night, last night, because of the quasi-judicial case that's coming up. So that's it.
And I think March the 15th, 2 weeks from now, we got a joint meeting. I
Yes,
believe.
I'm sorry. We do have a joint work session with, I think, Parks and Rec as well, right? And planning? Oh, it's just planning.
This is just a planning.
This is just a planning one? Okay. And then the volunteer appreciation dinner is going to be April 26th. I'm not really sure of the time on that. What time would that be starting?
6:30.
6:30? Okay. And our joint work session, I'm sorry, I don't know the time on that either.
7.
6 with you all. They'll come and join at 7.
Okay. All right.
And that's on March 15th.
Yeah.
Yeah, March 15th
It's-
and March 26th.
So just to clarify that, looks
Okay.
like we got an hour work session before they come.
Correct.
Correct. On March 15th.
Yeah, the
6
board
p.m.
meets at 6.
And so, yeah, I'm sorry, I did skip over that.
That's all right.
I'm still getting over the fact that I got kicked out.
Good.
And I will tell you, I did have a conversation with Habitat for Humanity, so they are still looking to bring in some affordable housing into Roseville. And they did send me some information. I didn't get a chance to read it yet. Again, because I know we're working on that definition of affordable housing, workforce housing. And I know they've been working with other municipalities on that. And I'm excited for the information that I have. I'm only sorry that I can't share it with you at this moment because I didn't get a chance to go over it. And there was a lot of money out there that can be helpful to us as a town in making that happen. So once I get a chance to read through that information, hopefully by the weekend, I'll make sure you all get a copy of that. Because they are definitely willing to come over here and talk to us again, because I know we've done it like 4 or 5 years ago, and they've had some changes within their own business, or should I say offices. So that's going to be very exciting. It sounds very hopeful speaking to them about that.
That's a great point. I
And
don't
we-
want us to lose sight of that.
Yeah, we
'cause
definitely need that.
workforce, I know affordable housing, people's minds go everywhere with what the definition is, but workforce housing, teachers, firefighters, there are people that can't afford to live in Roseville. So workforce housing, Wake County has that challenge, North Carolina has that challenge, the United States has that challenge. So I would love to keep us focused on that.
Yeah, it
So
is
good deal.
worldwide, and she did say, I mean, Raleigh is working on their plan. Apex is working on a really good plan for their affordable housing, workforce housing. And she named another municipality as well. But there's a lot of challenges with it, throughout the country, of course, but sometimes you get caught up in the whole country, you lose a little focus, so we need to concentrate on North Carolina, specifically Roseville.
Sure.
And again, I'm excited because she named some entities that I did not know provided assistance for municipalities to make it happen. And we'll see. Even Triangle Jet,
Yeah,
didn't realize it. They found something else out about them, and I'm one of the substitute delegates. So anyway, that's really it. I'm sorry. I don't want to turn this into a pajama party.
Sorry.
So thank you.
Good,
Thank you.
That was good.
good report, Commissioner. Appreciate that. Commissioner Sneed, public safety. There's a couple activities going on there, right?
There are, and this was my first meeting with the firefighters. I had met before and reported last time with the whole public safety, the police and the EMS. This time I met specifically with the fire department board. And while we were there, they had recognitions that they have held off on awarding because of COVID. But there were three major ones that they noticed that night. One was Frank Pierce for being Secretary Treasurer for the Fire Department Board for 50 years. Another was Mr. Richard Bartholomew for being 30 years in service to the fire department, and Spence Jones for being on the board for 25 years. So I'd just like to say thank you all for you gentlemen, for your dedication to Rolesville and our fire department. They gave an update on their volunteers. To date, they were ultimately down one. They had 4 vacancies, 3 hires. So that's pretty good as far as I'm concerned. We're getting there. So if any of you are interested, anyone listening, please contact the fire department. They did notice 3 of their volunteers, Landon Hubble, was going on to the Wake County Fire Academy and finishing up EMT training, so that's a big deal. Congratulations to him. Josh Reeves and Hunter Goss both received their black helmet, which evidently, I believe that means that they are firefighters now. So congratulations to those gentlemen. And we had a presentation, a slideshow presentation on Rolesville's growth by Assistant Chief Donnie Lawrence. And it was suggested by the fire department board that we have a joint meeting with their board and our town board so that we could see Donnie's presentation on growth and what their thoughts are. So I'd like to know what your thoughts are on that, because I need to get back to Rodney, Mr. Chief Privet, to let him know what your thoughts are on a joint meeting with them. And lastly, I had the honor of meeting the newest fire board member, Mr. Willard Horton. Very nice gentleman, and I am looking forward to learning more about him and working with the fire department.
Good. Good report. Thank you. A lot of work going on over there, so appreciate that. Commissioner Austin, Veterans.
Yes, sir. I'm happy to announce that on April 6th, I'll be meeting with Miss Andy Curtis, along with the Vice President and Administrator of Wake Med North Hospital, and also the Vice President of Wake Med Physicians Practices, to discuss with the current growth that we have here in Roseville, and also the probably of veterans that's going to be coming, and also the overflow that the Durham Veteran Affairs have right now, and the CBOT clinics. It takes veterans a lot of months to get an appointment. So what we want to do is just sit down, brainstorm, and figure out how can we bring Wake Med here to Roseville. Once this is done, then we will sit down with Mr. Austin Williams to come up with a plan of how to execute this.
Great.
Awesome.
Great, good work there. Thank you, Commissioner, appreciate that. Okay, next item is communications from town staff. We are doing this a little different starting tonight. We are bringing this up earlier in the agenda, so we'll kind of get that without having to wait too long. Also, we're not requiring all staff to report at each meeting. We're just going to have a couple staff reports, and then all the other staff reports will be included in the agenda package as we saw. So tonight, one of our reporters are Lisa Austin, Human Resources. I know there's a lot of good stuff going on there, and appreciate all the work around there, and welcome to the town board meeting.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Commissioners, Dave, Kelly. I am very excited to give you an update about all the good things that are going on in human resources. I'm going to start with some statistics that might seem a little daunting, but we're going to tackle that. Currently, we have vacancies in the Parks and Rec Department, also the Police Department. Let's see. That's it. We have a camp counselor, camp director, facility attendant, seasonal landscape worker, part-time park custodian, police officer, and recreation assistant. I'm going to share some statistics with you about these vacancies. For example, the camp counselor. We had 1,926 views. However, we only had 10 applications. That's 0.5%. Camp director, 1,445 views, 3 applications, 0.2%. Facility attendant, 14,149 views, 83 applications, 0.5%. Seasonal landscape worker, 5,949 views, 10 applications, 0.2%. Part-time park custodian, 1 view, no applications. Police officer, and some of these positions are ongoing postings, that's why those numbers are so high. But police officer, 8,077 views, 50 applications, 0.6%. Recreation assistant, 12,930 views, 85 applications, 0.7%. So if that tells you anything, all of these applications that we received, they are all less than 1% of the interested people looking at our postings. And these are the ones that are currently open. We did have some to close within the last few weeks, and they are human resources analyst. We received 1,745 views, 34 applications. That's 1.9%. Parks Operations Coordinator. And this is actually a position that we had to use a working title because it is actually the project and facilities coordinator position, which was posted last year, but we just didn't get any qualified candidates. So we decided to repost it with a working title. And we did get more qualified applicants when we used the working title. We received 1,131 views, and that generated 35 applications. That's 3%. Part-time code enforcement officer, which is also a repost, we received 1,457 views, 13 applications, and that's 0.8%. I know these numbers seem sort of discouraging, but in all actuality, they're not. They're an opportunity for us to pivot and do something different. We need to look at what we're doing, how we're doing it, and where we're doing it. And I think this is an opportunity for us to focus more on community engagement, more on focusing on those diverse populations. So it's an opportunity for us to step up our game and do something better, to attract those candidates, not only to look at our postings, but to have them apply, interested enough to apply for the positions. We're going to look at the wording of the postings. We're going to look at possibly going out to area colleges, high school, to see if maybe we can partner some type of internship program, something to generate more interest in our positions, not just people looking at them, but people actually wanting to work for the town of Roseville. Also, we had one employee to resign and go to another municipality. It was an advancement opportunity for him, something that he always wanted to do. And we also had one employee to retire. So that turnover rate isn't too bad. Of course, I would love to see it as 0 because I want everybody to stay, be happy, stay. But we're going to work on that as well.
So wait, was that recently?
Yes. We had a police officer to resign and go to, I think, Nightdale in January. And Miss Peggy, who was the permanent part-time custodian, she retired. That was February 18th.
Was she the one with the red hair? No?
No.
Oh, okay, I'm thinking of someone else. Okay, wow, okay, thank you.
Some of the things that are going on right now, other than the daily busy work, we are in the midst of a pay study. We're supposed to be meeting with the representative from the company who is conducting the pay study this week, actually tomorrow, I believe. Of course, I'm going to DEI webinars and trainings whenever I can. The last webinar that I participated in was Courageous Conversations. I am not my hair, and that was very, very enlightening for me. I'm trying to get different perspectives, different aspects of DEI, because that's only going to help us as an organization. As I said before, I'm not certified in DEI, but that is one of my goals. But I think if I can get as much background information that I can before actual training or going through the certification process, I think that'll only benefit me, and I'll be able to bring that back to the town. There is upcoming DEI training for you all and for the remainder of the staff. We have conducted training with the police department. We did that in January, so we have the staff here at Town Hall and also Public Works. And we hope to get that done within the next couple of months. Next week, we're going to be interviewing for the HR analyst position. That's on March the 8th. And then on March the 9th, we will be interviewing for the Parks Operations Coordinator. We are still reviewing applications for the part-time code enforcement officer. So once we've completed those reviews, then we'll go ahead and schedule those interviews. And something that I'm very, very, very excited about is the initiative that I would like to undertake to market the town of Roseville as the ultimate employer of choice. And anytime you're dealing with marketing, you know you have to have a tagline. So our tagline is RISE. I don't know if you've been by my office, but RISE stands for Roseville Inspiring Stellar Employees. And I take that to heart because I'm here in Roseville for a reason. Everything just fell into place when I got this job. And I'm very, very inspired. And I would love to see that enthusiasm within all of our employees. So we're going to be looking at things like our current policies, our practices. And in fact, I served on an advisory board for the Family Forward North Carolina. And they're looking to improve children's health and well-being, and at the same time, helping employers stay competitive. And they do that through family-friendly policies and things of that nature. And that also motivated me to look at some of our policies to see where we can tweak those policies to make them family-friendly as possible, to make them more attractive to diverse populations of people. So that's something that I'm very, very excited about. I think that we should not only, when I say we, I mean human resources, should not only be a conduit for change, we also need to model that behavior. So I think by being open to different things and stepping outside of the box, I think that would model the behavior for staff, try to get them more engaged. I believe in talking to them and getting their ideas about what would make the town of Roseville a better place to work. And I think once they feel that they are being heard, they'll be more engaged and more participatory in making the town a better place to work. But that is my update. Any questions?
I do have a question.
Okay.
So those percentages that you were given, by any chance, is that just the norm all over the world or North Carolina?
Right now, since the pandemic, yes.
Okay.
Yes. A lot of people are realizing that they can go into they can start their own business, or, they are more selective about where they work because they can be. They may be looking for positions where they can work from home. But yes, that is a norm, unfortunately. But we're going to overcome that because we're going to do something different. We're going to pivot. We're going to do something different.
Okay.
Sounds like you have a lot of great things coming out of HR, and I'm excited that you're here. I'm excited about the things that I just heard, and I know once you have it all in place and up and running that the staff is going to be excited about it. Good for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Good night.
Great job, appreciate that. Okay, we're going to hear from Parks and Recreation, Public Works. J.G. Ferguson, update from you tonight. I did see a news blast. It actually went out today, didn't it?
It did. It was a long one, but there's a lot going on. So, Mayor and Board of Commissioners, thanks for having us tonight. Hopefully this new platform that we're doing for staff reports works well. And so I'll give you a quick update on Parks and Recreation for the next 2 to 3 months, and also Public Works, where we're at right now with that. And I'll begin with Public Works. As you all know, Old Town subdivision, the first half of the subdivision had a resurfacing project that was completed. The Granite Falls Boulevard also had some sections that needed some repair. There's a lot of repair needed, but the worst sections, we went ahead and addressed those also with this contract, and those were completed, I believe, last Friday. The street sweeper, you may or may not have seen it out. We try to get out around 4 a.m. and hit Main Street with that when we do use the street sweeper. You'll start seeing it more frequently as the warmer temperatures come around. We do have to winterize it every time we use it, so we try not to use it so much when the temperatures dip too low. But we'll get a schedule out to the public so they'll kind of see when we're going to start hitting their neighborhoods. It won't be an exact day, it's going to be a time frame. We'll try to news blast when we know we're going to get there. So we're working towards that schedule to utilize that for the beautification of our town and keep our streets clean.
JG, does that ask the neighbors to get the cars off the street?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah. We typically always try to avoid yard waste days, Mondays. Tuesdays, we try not to sweep, just everyone's cans are out. So we obviously avoid those days. And then with the street parking, we want to give them some notice so we can make sure they can find alternate parking or in their driveways if they can, to allow us to make sure we get their complete street. As we all know, the weather is getting ready to turn as we start hitting these 70-degree days. We all know what that means, and so our crews will be out in full force mowing our right-of-ways and park systems. So they've got their hands full coming up, not too far away. So they're gearing up and getting ready for the growing season and again, make sure we keep our town and our entranceways, the beautification up to our standards. And that's the highlights that I have right now for Public Works. So I'm going to use Lisa's word here, and I'm going to pivot over to Parks and Recreation. And we have a lot going on, and I really want to make sure that our staff gets a lot of credit for the last 2 years. There's been a lot of ebbs and flows with different policies for COVID and masks and no masks and social distancing. And our staff has really done a great job of staying up with things and making sure we're providing safe and quality programming to to the Roseville community as a whole, and so I really want to make sure they get the credit they deserve for all of that. And with that said, we have a lot going on here in Roseville in the Parks and Recreation Department. As the mayor alluded to, there was a news blast today, and if you're not signed up, make sure you get signed up for those news blasts from the information. We call it Recreation Tuesday. So we try to do ours on every Tuesday or every other Tuesday. But some of the classes we have coming up between now and June, we have ballet classes, different variation of dance classes for youth. We have drawing classes, ages 7 to 17, and we have art classes for adults as well. And we have a new program, it's engineering for kids, ages 7 to 15, so we have a couple different sessions for those coming up. We have game hour for adults during the workday. Chair yoga has been pretty successful. I know we have some staff members participating in that. I believe there's some Wednesdays during the afternoon. We think we're averaging between 6 to 10 participants in that class, so that's really gaining some momentum. Senior bingo, we still have that program, and we're also offering a self-defense class. So we're trying to broaden our horizons on what we offer and hit all of our age groups as well for our citizens. One thing I do want to touch on too real quick is, as Lisa said, Peggy Stell did retire. She didn't want no fanfare, so we just kind of took her to Bojangles and got a biscuit for her on her last day. But I believe she started working with the town when Main Street Park came on board as an independent contractor with her family, and she came on board as a permanent part-time with us. So since 2005, she's been with us, and I give a lot of credit to Main Street Park and the visitors and the cleanliness that we've is attributed to her. So we really do want to appreciate her years of dedication to the town of Roseville. In our youth athletic programs, this is another big season. We have 804 participants currently signed up for this spring, which is the largest we've ever had. So Commissioner Sutton, 48% are residents, 52% are non-residents.
That was my next question.
Yep. And so we're kind of looking at that as a great positive too, the growth in our programming and where we're at. And I think it speaks volumes to our staff and the quality of programming they're producing here for the Roseville community as a whole. And the economic impact driver, that's bringing 1,000 families, into Roseville, or 1,000 people a week that don't live here. So we're trying to be that big draw to bring folks to Roseville. So again, Garrett deserves a lot of credit for that. He's working probably 60-hour weeks the next 2 weeks trying to get everything started. So he's doing coaches meetings next door right now.
Thank you, Garrett.
And then lastly, I want to touch on Kristen's programs with special events. In front of you, you should have a flyer that Kristen created. I think it kind of captures everything that we're looking at going on right now, and I know there's some questions, so I'll try to highlight those. We are having a litter sweep program. That's every other month. March 5th will be our next litter sweep pickup. You can sign up through our Rec One account through the Town of Roseville's Parks and Recreation page. I believe we have 8 to 10 people currently already registered to participate this Saturday. We also are doing our blood drives every other month opposite of the litter sweep. Those have been great turnouts. We're averaging, I think, between 40 and 50 participants, which is our capacity. So we have a really great turnout from our blood drives. Also in March, we do have the Arbor Day Celebration. And Kristen has texted me, we have 100 saplings that will be given out, and she gave me the information for that.
Great myrtles.
They are red maples.
Ooh.
Red maple.
And so we are partnering with, it is a Saturday. Historically, we've kind of done it like a 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, but we are going to do it on a Saturday this year. We are working with the Roseville Garden Club. They're going to be out there doing some educational pieces as well, and we have some birdhouses for families to come out and decorate with their children. So we're trying to make this a little more of a family event with some educational aspects to it as well. So we're looking forward to enhancing our Arbor Day event. Again, that's on March the 19th from 1 to 3, and that will be at Shelter D, which is on the back side of Main Street Park at 500 Scarborough Street. Like I said, there's a lot of new programming on here. Our traditional programs are Egg Rush, which we all know is just a rush to go grab the eggs off the football field at Roseville Middle School.
That's fun.
We're doing that again this year. We have not done that in the last 2 years. So we're really looking forward to engaging with our community again. That's something that, as recreationals, that's what we kind of thrive as off people, and not being able to do that so much. We're really looking forward to getting out and getting our citizens engaged again and gathering. One other new event, again, Kristen is working with Roseville Garden Club for the Memorial Day event, and we're also going to do a Memorial Mile off that event, where we're going to walk the loop of Main Street Park, and we're working now to maybe get some banners of some family members who want to put, to remember their family members along the loop itself to help honor them. So that's a new program as well. Look for more information to come out. She's still working on that right now to get the final touch on that. So again, there's a lot of stuff on here. If you ever have any questions, feel free to let me know, but really excited about offering a lot of these events for our public. I think I captured everything as quick as I could.
I have a couple questions. One, the trail art is only a month. It's not throughout the summer?
So it's only the month, we get enough pieces to put out 2 pieces every day in the month of June. So it's every day in the month of June, we put 2 pieces out along our greenway system.
Gotcha.
And you have to just be lucky and find the right spot that day. So it's similar to the turtles that you may have in front of you. That's that program.
Gotcha. And then I just had one other question. I've asked this question before. I know the fire department does it in other places, CPR. I know with summer coming up, water, all that good stuff, not to mention other reasons to have CPR training. I know we don't offer it here, but could we highlight when we send our next Parks and Rec update where people can get that training so it becomes top of mind for our
Yes, ma'am.
community?
Yeah, we'll reach out, and the Red Cross offers some programming.
Yeah.
I know the police department has someone on staff who does some training, and we
awesome.
utilize that person for our part-time and
Yeah.
full-time staff to make sure they're all, especially our camp counselors and things like that. So I can work with PD and also with Red Cross to,
Yeah, just
Make
to
sure we can
point
help
people in the right
publicize. Yes, ma'am.
direction, because with summer coming up, we know things happen, so. Good updates. I love this, by the way. I'm visual, so I really like this.
no, that's all Kristen. She's doing a really great job with
I like
stepping
that.
into this new role.
That's really good. Thank you, JD.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, JD. Appreciate that. Good report. Thank you. Public's invited to be heard now. So any individuals wishing to participate in a public invited to be heard. Was anybody signed up, Robin? Did we have a list, anything? Just Derek, okay. So I think we do have some that has wrote in, so we'll go over those. So Derek, 3 minutes.
I know.
You got to watch.
I got you.
gotta
No,
watch.
but you do. We're asked. Dan does. One of you guys do. So yes, I'm Derek Verstegen at 414 Virginia Water Drive. I actually had a statement prepared tonight related to funding of our parks, but a fellow resident, Ms. Sarah Quadri, who also planned on attending this evening, but to make her own statement on a different topic. She's not feeling well and doesn't think it appropriate for her to attend. So I did not have access to her written statement, so I've put this together based on the conversations that have taken place. So I present this in lieu of my original statement. Now you can start timing. So yeah, I've been involved in a couple conversations with some residents regarding the traffic at the high school. I know this topic gets brought up from time to time, and I know there are no easy solutions. Ms. Quadri wishes these 3 following points to be shared. First, it has been learned the public crash database websites do not indicate a crash history at the school. So the first request is to see if the town can look into having this corrected. Getting this updated is an important aspect of town planning, especially with what's already been approved along the East Young Street and Rolesville road corridors. Second, although the flashing yellow lights were installed at the 35-mile-per-hour school zone signs, it doesn't seem to have done too much just yet. So the second request is for the town to consider an increase in police patrols in that area during the time those flashes are active. Additionally, it would be of interest to see if the town would facilitate a conversation between itself, Wake County Public Schools, NCDOT, and the Point developer about putting and installing a permanent signal light at the school intersection that would be functional only during those restricted peak times and event times, and would be flashing yellow along the East Young and Rolesville Road directions. We feel that would be a good solution, and since there is an intersection on the other, or since the townhomes are being planned on the other side of that same entrance, it would be something that I think would be a very interesting thing to consider to do. Thirdly, the MSTA, the Municipal of School Transportation Assistance, can be used to help conduct a student study with the goal of getting a resource officer to the location. However, this process is lengthy and the onus is on the school to follow through. The concern here is that the process to get a resource officer out there will end up being a little too late. I'm sure you know we've recently lost 2 Rolesville High School students in separate automobile-related accidents this year. We really don't need to see any more of our youth subject to unsafe traffic conditions when there is something we can do about it. I don't really have a closing statement for you, but I have already provided this statement and the one I originally intended to provide. I've already given that to Robin, so you're free to have that from her. So that's what I've got. Any questions or? Thank you. Appreciate the time.
Thank you, Derek. Appreciate it for.
You made it. Good job.
And I think it was a couple more comments along the lines, if you want to read those for the record.
I have 2 comments that were submitted online. The first being from Valerie Massengill, address 6166 Rogers Road. A sidewalk is needed between Roseville Plaza and Granite Falls Boulevard. This is a safety hazard. I have seen mothers or strollers have to walk through the mud in that area and a child fall off their bike in that area. It makes no sense that there is not a sidewalk that leads to the crosswalk. And lastly, comment from Maria Wynn, 1018 Virginia Water Drive. I am not able to attend in person to support the community members speaking about the Roseville High School traffic concern, so I'm submitting my support via online comment instead. Please carefully consider what is at stake here and consult NCDOT about solutions to make the entrance to the high school safer. There have been far too many accidents, and there will continue to be more until something changes. The additional traffic brought on by the new development on Young Street will only worsen the problem. So please address this before the new townhomes are built. Most major high schools have stoplights at their entrances for this very reason. That should have been considered when the school was first built, but it's not too late to take action now. Please help keep our students and community members safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin.
I am surprised that they didn't put a stoplight up there at Roseville High School.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's all. Anybody else want to speak? We do have a few minutes. George, you want to say some words? Come on up.
Be very brief. As follow-up to him, this afternoon I was coming down on Everett Road on a older vehicle that I own, an antique vehicle, doing 35 miles an hour. Someone in a Maserati comes around on a double yellow line past me.
Maserati, you said?
A Maserati, yes. They passed me on a Maserati. This afternoon, I have an old Land Rover, and he passed me. I was doing 35 miles an hour, and behind him, there was someone in a bike, motorcycle, and they were racing. I know the police can't be there all the time, but somehow it needs to be resolved because someone is going to get killed eventually. Okay?
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Come and get you one of them red oaks now. I think as for the high school thing, that's something Kelly and the chief has been working on, and I think we'll continue to work on. I know I have a meeting with Mr. Perry, which is the new principal at Roseville High School, coming up Friday, and it wasn't particular for this item. It was just more of a get-together to share issues and things, but this would definitely be something that we would talk about. Because my experience, I've gone to Zebulon that way a couple mornings, and my experience is just not enough stacking going into the school. They're stacked all the way out to the highway and in the highway, and I don't know if you drop kids off.
Every morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a stacking problem in the school.
Between that and a left-hand turn out of that entrance that should never be a left-hand turn out of that entrance.
During a certain time of day. Yeah.
We've had these conversations
Yeah.
over and over.
Yeah, and that's a good idea. So we're going to talk about it. You know, the stacking problem is a school problem. The traffic light would be our problem and, you know, DOT problem. So, you know, we'll try to figure out what's the best thing to do up there. But,
Since we are talking about traffic, I just want to mention one other area. The other day, I was coming back in from Raleigh on the bypass, which has become the raceway. I almost literally got hit, literally, on the bypass. Coming into Roseville, I was attempting to get over so I could turn on Jonesville Road. And what people tend to do, I wish we had a sign that says, "Through traffic, keep right," because you got a lot of people turning left to these exits, right? So they're in this left lane trying to dodge in and out to go around people. I'm just trying to get over to my little lane so I can get off. That person had to be doing 75, 80 miles per hour, flying. And they were going straight because they were trying to just get on up the road. I get it. Whenever there's a straight roadway, I get it. And it's flat and there's no lights. So just be aware that that speed is tending to increase out there on that bypass.
thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Okay, with that, we got a consent agenda. There's 4 items on the consent agenda. That 3 of them needs approval. I think 1, 2, and 3. The 4th one is more like informational thing. So I would say we pull that one and I think Michael's prepared to give us some information of why, you know, he wants us to, and, you know, as it says in here, no decisions be made, but also they want permission to move on and getting some more information from landowners and such. So do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
I second.
All right, and that's to let Michael speak on number 4. So we're voting on the first 3. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, board. So Michael, if you would come up at this time, and I know you have put a lot of work into this thing, and I guess you're in a phase of gathering information now.
Yeah, and so after the consultant presented on January 18th to the board, those kind of the site analysis and that market analysis, they took that and kind of put it into report format, and that's what's before you tonight. For us to look at, digest, review, and gather feedback. And I'd like to take a few weeks to maybe let the town board review this, and then I'll plan to reach out individually to ask for any feedback or commentary that you might have. We do also have a plan to bring this to the planning board, as some of the recommendations in the plan after doing this study might involve land use items and things like that, looking at, you know, what our next, you know, the update to the comprehensive plan could look like, and whether we would want to incorporate some of the stuff in this study into that. So that planning board meets next on March 28th, so we'll be asking them for feedback as well. And then we have had 2 meetings with the property owners within the study, and I will also plan to reach out to anybody that I haven't heard from over the next month and kind of get any input that landowners have as well on the study. And we're going to do our best to kind of take all that from landowners, from the town board, from planning board, and feed that back to the consultant and look at incorporating that feedback for them to put together sort of a final report to come back before the town board. And at that time, for the town board to consider accepting or rejecting or saying, go back to the drawing board, or however the board sees fit at that time. And I think that could be April or into May maybe. So that's kind of where we're at with the study. I'm available for questions.
Any questions?
Is the study available online for the public to see?
Now it is just as it's in the packet tonight. We have not put it online in a separate area yet.
But would we want input at that point from the public? If we haven't decided to draft, and you said it's going to be a few months before we actually approve it?
if that's a step the board would like to see, we could go through a public sort of input process where we put it out there and just kind of,
I just want the public to be aware. My thing is make the public aware before you decide on that it's available and they're not approved, but this
Right.
is the draft. We'll be making this so that they know that it's there. So when a public meeting does come up, folks know that, oh, this has been out there for a while.
Yeah.
And they can find it. That's always,
right,
I can't always find stuff on the website.
yep.
Just saying. But yeah. So I don't know if that was the intent.
Yeah, we could do that, do a news blast and get it out there and say, hey, this draft report is available for review, and
I think that would be good. That way they could at least see it, know what's going on, know that it's not approved, it is a draft.
right.
Yeah, they're going to think it's approved as soon as they read it.
Right,
Somebody's
unless you
gonna
say, this is
Yeah,
not
it-
approved, it's a draft, will be considered by the town board later in the year.
Have to draft on all the pages.
Yeah,
Would have to.
that's a good point.
You would
Yeah.
have to, yeah.
And I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there because.
No, I think it's a good idea.
We
and
have time.
I think also we ought to anticipate there might be some further processing from the landowners
Right,
and not just reach out to ones we haven't heard, but make sure that those who have heard have had a chance to absorb it and comment
see
also.
what's going
So
on.
we'll make that reach out also, make sure they get a chance to give us their comments also.
Okay, I just have 2 questions. One, so I read it, and so is this going hand in hand with the feasibility of Fowler Road being where it is projected in the study?
Yes, I think what they did take a look at was that general area feasible? And the answer came back, yes,
To build that road there?
to build that road in that area. They looked at topography.
Okay,
If you see in the study, it did get changed a little bit compared to what the community transportation plan had from 6 months or so ago. So minor adjustments, but
still the same,
they did come to the conclusion that a road could be built there. There was one stream crossing,
right?
and so that would be, an expense at some point. But,
Still a go.
yeah,
Okay, and my other question is, so the wetland study that's in there, so does that affect the buildings where they were initially, the first draft that we saw, where the buildings were sitting? So the wetlands that are outlined in this study, does that affect the size and the placement of the buildings where they're going to be?
yep, and they took that into account as well, looking at wetland, streams, topography. And so they took that into account where they decided to place buildings.
Okay, because I was like, I don't know if that changed, or, so I guess it did. Did the sizes of the buildings change based on that?
I think, just from the beginning, they've taken that into account when they did the size of the buildings. So I don't know if there was a larger building in the beginning that once they,
I was just wondering if the wetlands here, so does
Yeah.
that building is no longer 100,000 square feet, now it's 80,000. I was just wondering if there were
Right.
anything that stuck out, you're like, wow, that's a big, no,
yeah, no,
Okay.
not from January 18th when
okay.
they reported out and included. And again, those are just ideas and
Right.
concepts and
Yeah.
a vision for what
A
could be there.
draft. It's a draft.
Right, yeah. But they did take a look at that to say, well, it's a wetland over here, there's a stream here, so we obviously can't put a certain size building in this area. We're gonna have to account for all that environmental.
Okay, I saw where it was outlined, and I'm like, okay, so did that building move?
Mm-hmm.
Or, okay, it was a little confusing to me, but thank you for
Got
the
it.
clarification.
Yeah, the only comments, any other comments from the board?
I just have a quick question about the property behind us. Has it been relisted yet? And has there been any activity on it?
We do have that listed on LoopNet right now, and I'm getting a few calls and some interests.
Talking about the six acre?
Yeah.
Yeah, 6.5.
acres or so.
Like interest as in how many acres, or I'm interested in coming to get, like how serious is it besides a phone call?
Yeah, there've been, what kind of price are we thinking about? And, I refer them to the appraisal that was done in 2018 and the tax value that's been assessed on it.
Remind me of that price and tax value again?
The appraisal from 2018 was 1.4 million, and the current tax value is about $850,000.
So it's gone up.
Yeah. There's
It's
been
like-
questions about, do we want to have a road connecting from the Barrington subdivision to Southtown, the Southtown Circle there? Coming
Okay.
through onto Main Street, as is shown in a previous approved plan. There's that approved site plan that's out there. So if somebody does come forward with a proposal, they'll have to come before the board. And
Okay, I have another question, actually, about the road. Where am I? About the road that's behind the animal place. Wasn't there some
Veterinary?
interest? What is it? Yeah, that's it.
Veterinary?
Wasn't there some interest on somebody wanting to buy that land? I just want to ask, okay, maybe I'll ask you after the meeting, but I just really think we should not sell that land just yet. Because, I mean, that's going to tie into a lot of future opportunities for others that may come in and want to buy more. So has there been any more talk about that piece?
right behind
The veterinarian,
Veterinarian.
the one that connects you to that little,
It's the same parcel.
yeah, it's the same.
Yeah, it's all one.
the road is though. But somebody, wasn't, there was some interest, an entity wanted to buy just that piece though? Correct? Am I?
I think you said one time that the veterinarian wanted to carve off a piece.
Yeah,
or
he's
something.
interested, but there's been no proposal. You said all or nothing in your proposal.
Okay, good. That's what I'm trying to say, but I was just trying to not name the entity, but to just say it like, okay,
So that's been a question is, hey, would you guys consider breaking it up? And we've said no. to
okay,
this
good.
point.
And I'll talk to you about that later.
Yeah.
And I don't have a financial interest in anything I'm going to talk to Michael about, just so you know that. I want to say that too.
Yeah. You know, back to the commercial growth feasibility study. Any other questions on that? Because I do have a couple more comments and questions.
I just think we need to be real clear when we communicate to the public that this is not approved, because I know in the past when we put out a concept, people read that as this is what we're going to do. So if there could be some language around there that describes that this is not an approved concept, this is a draft of what could be, but it's not necessarily what will be in the end. Make that abundantly clear, and I love what April said, draft on each page, that watermark. I think that's important.
Yep.
I'm done.
You know, I guess my comments is around particularly two things, Michael. I kept hearing from a couple landowners in that meeting the other night. April mentioned feasibility. You know, anything you can do, I think from a landowner's perspective, how much is it going to cost from a feasibility standpoint? And I think we need to know that, you know, how much is it a $5 million road or is it a $50 million road? You know, all that has to do with the people's land there. And, you know, it was talked about really hard by one person about how do you get both sides to pay for it, you know?
Right.
I'm not going to pay the whole share for somebody else to get a free road on their side. So it's a lot of, you know, it's a lot of work that has to be done there. And so, you know, around that feasibility thing. And then another one that, not only this one, but particularly this one that came up recently, you know, any of these life science or tech projects or whatever, you have to have incentives with that for people to come. So, you know, just to designate it, I'm not sure we would get any attraction if we don't have incentives, you know. And I don't know if we really know what incentives we're willing to give to get what we vision on that map to be reality.
Now, I
You
remember
know.
Jenny Mizell working on that at one time, but that was all given over to Kelly and Michael.
Yeah. So, you know, I don't.
It's key, though.
I don't know. That's probably not part of that study, I don't guess.
No.
So, you know, how do we make that work? Because it's almost like a double whammy. If they got to pay to put a road in and then no incentives, what's going to make them want to come, you know?
Yeah.
And I never heard that consultant, and there's a couple tough questions asked to him on the call that he wasn't able to answer along those lines, you know?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, he can put these things on a map, but we got to really figure out how to make it work. And,
But who creates those incentives? Is it the town or?
yeah,
is
it's
it
a
the
town,
consultant?
it's a town. But, you know, we have to have ideas on, you know.
So don't we have something that was being worked on? A couple of years ago, I thought we had, that was passed on
There's an
to you.
incentive.
We have this.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we used incentives, like, for instance, with the Cobblestone Village project. And that would be something, when the time came and we were seeking to attract some type of development that the town wanted to attract, that would be a discussion in the future. I think, you know, the consultant mentioned how this was really kind of a initial planning step that is the first step of 5, 10, 15 years before something really materializes out there.
Yeah.
And this was kind of just answering the question, hey, can we do something out here or not?
Yeah.
Are we looking in the wrong area of Roseville altogether, and were we foolish to designate it as business park and mixed use in our future land use map? Or was this an area that made sense, and hence the feasibility aspect? And what we're hearing so far from the report is that the answer is yes. Roseville can attract commercial development to that area, mixed use development. But now the real work kind of begins after, and the investment that the town is willing to put into helping with infrastructure development, partnering with a future developer that says, hey, we want to put a new business here or something like that. So this is really just the first initial, you know.
Is it always set in long-term like that, though? Probably, right?
Yeah, I mean, I talked to my counterparts in other towns like Holly Springs and Apex, and where those conversations before you hear a big announcement like so-and-so is going to build a $2 billion facility. Those are 10 years, 12 years in the making from when those conversations first got done. And
Yeah, that's one of the issues, I think, you know, from Atlanta. I know one of the commissioners asked me earlier tonight, are we planning, the town planning to buy the land so we can hold on to it for somebody to come in the future? Because when you tell those landowners it may be 10 or 15 years, it scares them to death, because some of them actually have contracts today for other types of development, and then say, hey, we don't, we've got to wait 15 years. I mean, I'm not exactly sure. I'm not exactly sure how that works, you know.
A feasibility versus affordability. Got to think of both. But I think about when Mr. Medley just said, is it 15 years? I think about the previous board in the past that bought that land that now Cobblestone is building on. How long ago was that?
That's been
That y'all
15,
bought
20 years.
About almost 20 years that they bought that land, and now it's finally being developed. But it started last year.
Okay, I'm just going to debate that a little bit, only because it didn't seem like there was any real goals to build on that at that
Right,
time.
but
I know what you're saying.
Right,
though.
they were
That's-
holding it.
yeah,
They
right.
had bought it and held it for a while. We didn't have economic development. So there's other factors that
right.
played into that.
But basically, yes.
Yeah. But I do think with the commercial growth that we're seeing in Roseville, I think that will drive additional interest.
Sooner.
Yeah, sooner than 15 years.
Yeah, I think there's two pieces to the plan if you study it. One has to do with the commercial or the mixed-use stuff, and then one has to do with this life science.
Industrial.
The industrial. I think the industrial is the one that, I think you're right. I think the commercial will be sooner.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's just the life science is one that tough, you know.
yeah, it's
We're getting there, y'all.
And maybe the incentive is we build a road and put it in there, if we know how much it's gonna cost. I mean, if we're gonna attract some people, the first thing they look for, you know, as he said in his study, is they look for the infrastructure, water, sewer, you know, all this kind of stuff.
Yep.
He didn't say it, but roads is a big deal, you know, and if it ain't already there, you know, that's a big deal.
yeah.
I know near Charlotte, it's a big one going in out there, and the state in Charlotte off I-26 is putting a $26 million exchange in there just to, you know, for this, you know, that's a big incentive, you know, to come.
They got a lot of connections in Charlotte.
But that's a huge thing, though.
Hit roads, I'm saying.
I think it's a semiconductor plant or something, so it's pretty large, you know.
Huge.
But thanks, Michael, appreciate that. And I would say continue and collect your data and,
Yeah, it's, at some point in the next couple of weeks, I'll ask you to just send me any thoughts or commentary or feedback that you might have, and we'll keep moving along.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Are you up next,
Good work.
or is that Amy?
I think I might be starting off the conversation.
Okay,
at least.
all right. Next item is Roseville Community Center at Cobblestone Village's financial model update. So you going to start that off too, Michael?
Yep, and then I will hand it off to Amy. Just as an introduction, the board had asked, so CPL, our architectural and design firm that is designing the community center at Cobblestone, presented at the February 15th meeting, and the board had asked for kind of a more itemized look at the costs, and also to run the financial model that we saw at the retreat to see if kind of the low-end estimate of the building and then the high-end estimate would fit in and how that would work. And Amy will come up in a second to kind of run through that. But we can see here that if you look through your packet, you can see that CPL put together sort of the total cost, and then at the high end, with kind of some of the bells and whistles, and then sort of that lower end, the high end being the 8 million, and then the lower end being the 6.9. And then also, if you add in the clock tower, the freestanding clock tower, that's another 250,000 to those two numbers. So when you see Amy plug in the financial model, you'll see those two top numbers, and then with an additional 250,000 for the freestanding clock tower. But all those other kind of numbers underneath the top numbers are kind of the breakdown. So soft costs, other project costs, and hard costs all total up together to reach those total high-end and low-end numbers. And then in the pages there, you can kind of see how soft costs are broken down, other project costs, and hard costs. I think at the meeting 2 weeks ago, we just kind of had the hard costs, and so this way you kind of see everything that's going to be involved to build this building. And we took out the generator. That was an alternate as well that we had talked about at the last meeting, where maybe we didn't need that, and that was a $200,000 cost. So that's not plugged into the total.
So the low-end number includes the soft cost and other project costs?
Yep,
Okay.
yep,
Because I remember it being 6, now it's 7, so, okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
Michael, did you have a
inflation.
slide on that? You know,
I did not put together.
I was just thinking from the public if they wanted to see the numbers.
Yeah,
Just that part that's online, in the packet.
Yeah.
and I think
Okay.
the question from the board was, does this still work? Does 6.9 work? Does 8 million work? And how does that fit in with our budget? And
Yeah,
all-
I think the question I would have, and probably the board has, how does that fit into, financial picture
Yep, and I'll
more
let
than anything?
Amy go through that, and she actually might have some slides, I think. Amy.
Yep, good evening, everyone. I apologize for this information not making it into your packet. Our consultants have been a little tied up with some other projects, but they did get the information to me. This was emailed to you. I wrote it down in case you wanted to pull up your email. It was emailed to you yesterday at 2:57 p.m. Because I know it's going to be hard to read from these monitors from where you're sitting. So what we did is have our
So you
consultants.
said yesterday, Monday?
Yesterday, 2:57 p.m., an email from Kelly that has
Of
this
the updated model,
attached.
right. I thought you meant from you, something else. Okay, got that.
Yep.
Oh.
So I'll give you a minute to look for that.
Got it.
All right, so what we did is asked our consultants at Davenport to update the model. Tried to keep those updates very minimal, only changing the amount of the Cobblestone Community Center, keeping everything else the same so that we could make a good comparison. So this is substantially the same as what you saw at your retreat that we talked about a few weeks ago. We ran 2 scenarios. One, the first one, again, it's very hard to read. I'm struggling a little bit myself, 7.25 million. The model we used at the retreat was 7 million even. So this first one does bump it up a little bit to meet that new lower estimate and include the clock tower. So it's 7.25 million. If you look down what the impact is, you know, the important row here is the one with the penny. Obviously, what's the impact on the equivalent tax rate? So you can see this $250,000 doesn't really change things substantially from what we had or what we showed at the retreat. The first year impact remains at 0 when you're talking about financing $250,000 on a 10-year basis. That doesn't work out to a big amount, you know, year over year. So we would be able to absorb that. What it does do to the second year, originally year 2 was 0.39, and so it does bump up. So obviously there's an impact as you roll forward, right? On the second chart, looks a lot like the first one. Only thing different is that the Cobblestone Community Center is now shown as 8.35 million. So that is meant to reflect the high end of the estimate. There's a little bit of an impact here. You can see it does increase the equivalent tax rate impact is 0.3 of a cent in the FY23 year. And then again, there's some roll-up impacts as you go a little bit further into the model. But overall, these aren't showing significant, you know, we're not seeing multiple pennies and hundreds of thousands of dollars difference with these models compared to what you saw previously. A couple things I do want to mention. So we talked at the retreat a little bit about the Parks and Recreation impact fee and how that was factored into this model. And Mitch did mention that this Cobblestone Community Center is using that. It's a combination of those impact fees, the reserves we've already accumulated, as well as new monies, and along with some general fund money. So I just wanted to point that out to you, that this does use a good degree of that source of funding in the model that he's created here. Obviously, we've talked many times that it's a model, right? It's a plan. We'll update this every year when we have better information, new information. So over time, how that balances out between those Parks and Rec impact fees and general fund monies, we'll be able to balance that a little bit better as we go through this model over the years. But again, overall, given these new updated numbers, not significant change from what we've seen previously.
I have a quick question real quick. I'm totally confused, but, okay, so the impact fees. Okay, how much of a part is it playing in the early numbers?
Right, so the debt service in the early years, and I would have, I'm
Not
bringing
exact, just so I can kind of.
the early part, it is using, to make the debt payments in those early years, it is using the reserves that are already accumulated for the impact fees.
Okay, so what's accruing is not, what's newly accruing is not what you're referring to. You're talking about what's already there.
Yeah, I mean, it's all, you know, it's all kind of the same thing, because you obviously use the new revenues before you start dipping into the reserves, but yes, it's the payments in the first few years are 100% from park impact fee availability.
Does there ever come a time where your impact fees just go down?
In terms of annual revenues or what you charge? Well, they're entirely dependent upon the number of permits.
Right, so eventually it's going to go down.
If growth slows down, it will.
Yes, right.
That's right.
So then how does that impact the numbers moving forward? I'm not asking
Yeah.
for an exact number,
Right.
but that would be a concern because of what we're going through now. You know, even with the war that's not even technically here, that would impact all of those numbers on there.
So it uses, primarily, it uses what's already been collected. And then it moves into some general fund money that's already collected. So there is some use of it in the future, but we were very conservative in terms of what we would expect to receive from that Parks and Rec impact fee revenue going forward. We're very conservative because it's so dependent upon the number of permits.
Gotcha.
Yeah, my only, observation in looking at the two charts, especially the second chart, it assumes that by July 1 of next year, 23, everything will be built, all the furniture, and we'll be paid for everything by July 1 of next year. And, in thinking of today's environment, and I'm not confident that we will have it built and moved in and everything paid for by July 1 of next year, will we?
Right, so when you're building, you go for the debt when you have bids in hand, right? So we would be able to get say we financed $7 million, just because we go finance $7 million, we would get the $7 million available to spend.
Like a construction loan?
And then, but then the payments start immediately.
But it's only
Right.
payments for what you've spent.
Right, no, it's payments on what the debt you took out.
Oh, well, most construction loans, you don't get this entire thing. You get it, you draw on it as you use it. I mean, that's.
Yeah, but in municipal, because it's usually a level principal, and then the interest wanes over time. There's a certain structure to municipal debt that's a little different than private construction, I think.
So you're getting the whole thing up front.
You get a loan.
Right, up front versus construction, like you said, it's in bits and pieces.
Yeah, that's interesting. Never heard of that. So we would bank $7 million off the start and start making payments on it,
And
even
then
though we don't have a
spend-
building anything.
You're spending it out, because you're using the loan to pay the contractor who's building the building.
And that's the only way it's done on a municipal level, on a government level.
Well, there's pay as you go, you pay cash.
Right, you mean pay as you go, meaning receive as you,
Meaning you have saved $7 million, and then you pay the contractor out of the pot that you have saved. Or
No,
a
but I'm
combination.
going along with what Ronnie is saying. You're getting the whole lump sum, but you don't have a building to show for it. You're not making any money on the building that's going to be up and providing revenue, but you are going to be building on that loan as it's being built. Versus, okay, we only need half of that now to get started, and as each step is completed, like in residential. So it's definitely different.
Yeah, it
It's a
sounds
big-
like it is.
It's a big consideration right there, too. Not saying a roadblock, just it's something new. To me, anyway.
So do you see enough flexibility in your budget to make the second one work?
I think, again, both of these are not considerably different from what you've seen previously. And what we heard from Davenport was that this plan, particularly in the first year, is a doable plan.
So I'm a little confused on which one. The second one is what we're looking at? The 8.35 versus the
Yeah.
7.25?
Hopefully it'll fall somewhere between the first and second one, the true cost or something, right?
That's right. I mean, that's.
But I guess some of this, and maybe I don't, maybe I'm thinking about private sector loans and stuff, but, when a lot of the costs had to do with buying furniture and, doing things to add to the building and all. And that's why I'm struggling to think we would borrow everything up front, even to buy the furniture and stuff. Maybe we would. I'm not exactly sure how that would be structured, If that makes sense.
Right. It is a little different animal than
Right.
you would see in the private sector.
So and this is all to get cobblestone started? Not like the public works facility and the complex and the police station? Not that, correct?
I missed the first part, I'm sorry.
The 8.35 is just really cobblestone, it's nothing else.
If you're looking at the second slide, the 8.35 is just cobblestone. That's right. This still assumes a $3 million public works facility and work on the Rogers Willoughby entrance as well. Those
Okay.
stay in place, as we saw a few weeks ago.
Yeah. I guess to make sure we all, hearing the same message. So you're saying, from your perspective, financial, it's more of a thumbs up than thumbs down?
I think this is a doable plan
Gotcha.
that we see in the first year.
Kelly, you own the budget somewhat. It's the mayor, it's a,
If this is a
it's the
project,
manager's budget.
if this is a project you still want to do, it's our recommendation you move forward with the next design phase, as you heard last 2 weeks ago. And then you'll have a better probable cost. We'll come back and report in on that. You'll have another checkpoint there to make another decision. I hear the range, I agree, the range shouldn't be at the high end. It should be more at the low end probably. But I think we're prepared to take it to the next design phase and come back, and you're going to have a lot more specifics as far as what your finishes are going to be, what your probable cost is going to be, even higher confidence on that as far as the designer. And you're going to have an opportunity to have this conversation to see if you still want to go forward on it.
How much is that next phase going to cost again? There's a cost to that too, correct?
Oh, they do the next design phase?
Yes.
I do not know, I'm sorry.
I know it's not like $5 or $10. I know it's like,
It's factored in.
yeah, is it factored in?
It's factored in, right?
Yeah,
is.
yeah, but I don't, it's a few $1,000s more to do more work, design work, yes.
Okay,
I do not know, I'm sorry, Michelle.
that's okay.
And the contingency is built in these numbers, right? We talked about that
Correct.
before. My concern is, we're talking these numbers here in beginning of 2022, and as we go through the design phase, because our inflation rate's now at 7.5%. What does it look like in 2023 if we're still designing phases? Are we at $10 million by then? At what point do you lock in on it? Can we get a lock?
If you
Can we
remember,
buy a lock?
so she laid that schedule out, and I'm sorry we don't have it. I could bring it back up. But I think the next phase is going, the next design phase is going to take less than 3 months. And then you're going to have another check-in, and then you're going to do a final phase. But we had this projected to go to bid next winter, this coming winter, start of 2023. So it's going to move along. There's another 9 months worth of work to get it to final design and to bid.
Got you. Forgive my ignorance.
That's fine.
I'm not an engineer.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, say we're at $8 million. I know y'all are saying the low end. I've just learned, go with the high end, right? So say we're at $8 million today. By the time we get to, we're ready to rock next winter, February 2023, whatever that date is, are we still at $8 million? Is there a lock, like I lock in a mortgage rate? I'm just putting it in simple terms.
So I seem to recall first that she did have contingency, and she did put in some factor of time in those cost estimates.
Okay,
And secondly, there will be a lock.
okay,
There will be a lock when we have a bid.
okay, gotcha.
That's the lock.
That's what I'm looking for.
Whenever that is.
I know, whenever that is. but
That's
what
the
I'm looking
lock.
for. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. But I do hear some contractors now, they won't
won't even lock.
give you a lock on the materials, because materials is what
All
they
over the
can't
place.
control, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm speaking from 6 months ago, so I don't know what, again, you bring up fair points. Again,
Yeah.
if we want to do anything in the next year or two, we're going to navigate this, and we may have to have more conversations like this, I don't know.
And this, just to clarify for the public, so that's no confusion, we are not building a mixed-use cobblestone. Cobblestone, the developers are building that. We're talking about a community center within that development. Is that what it's called, a community center?
Yes.
Community center. I just want to clarify, because I don't know that that was ever said, and I know we
Roseville
know.
Community Center at Cobblestone Village.
There we go. So this is what we're focused on, the community center at Cobblestone, Roseville Community Center at Cobblestone, between $7 and $8 million is what I'm seeing now.
Yeah.
And the estimated cost of the private development It's still $55 to $60 million that the developer's putting into it, on top of this.
Of what we're doing.
What was that?
They've estimated $55 million investment into that site.
For cobblestone?
For
Does that include the undergrounding? Oh, that's a whole nother comment.
I love that smile,
That's
Kelly.
another discussion.
So I do have one question about this,
Yeah,
and I
go ahead.
probably should have brought it up when CIP was here. The operating cost for this thing, year to year, is that budgeted right now? Or is that just, we're talking about, I know we're just talking about cost of the building right now, but,
It's not in these numbers.
okay,
Well, he did build it
Thought we
into the
did have
future
some.
years of the model.
okay.
It may be a fair, that's
Thank you.
probably also probably not as
Conservative.
conservative as it should be, conservative the wrong way. It may, those operating costs may be a little low,
Okay.
but there are some figured into future years, for once the building is built.
So I'd like to see if we could, and it's further along in the engineering part, but looking at possibly solar panels and what the offset would be versus energy use in the building and having that.
That's a good point.
And I have a question too, along with that. Wood is so expensive.
No, I'm good.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
That was it.
I just didn't want to forget. I do apologize.
fine.
Also, outside of wood, because a lot of places are using steel now in place of wood. Is that a possibility as well? I know we're talking about the material checklist, but, wood is so expensive and steel seems to be making a little comeback.
We can make both these.
No, I've actually
think
talked to a couple of developers that are using steel. They said it's cheaper than wood.
Yeah, I think the main building is going to be steel. Now, I don't know about the office area,
The
but,
bones of it.
if it's a gym type thing, if that's what we're shooting
I'm
for.
still talking
with
behind the sheetrock. I'm talking about steel. I know you're talking about, yes. It is, I think, a good portion of it is.
Yeah,
the
But
shell,
there's
the
some
outer
aspects
shell,
of the
yeah.
building that can be steel
Right.
too. I can send that person to you and you can have a conversation. Not to say that I'm just saying, this is what I'm hearing. This is a conversation that I was a part of. And I was surprised. I'm like, I don't want steel. Sounds like it's going to be cold in wintertime. But it's not like that, so it's a thought.
Paul, we'll in our next phase, I'll make sure they cost it out, but I did, in the preliminary phase, ask that very specifically. I looked at both that and ground source,
Okay,
and the payback on solar was 25 to 30 years.
okay,
But we'll
Right.
double check.
yeah.
I don't want to miss it either, because I
So
agree
it-
with you, I wanted to do that.
So it would be built on the concept of going green, like green energy. Is that a thought?
No, we have decided not to include solar because of the payback costs. So Paul's saying, let's talk about that again in our next phase, and we'll bring it to you. But the payback, in my opinion, did not justify at least being built in this cost at this point. But we'll certainly take a look at it again based upon your request. So everybody is okay going the next step and seeing this back in about 12 weeks?
Yeah, I think so. Did you get all your questions?
Yeah, that was it.
'Cause,
No, I'm so sorry.
I know what you're saying, it's going to be other costs, right?
Yeah.
But it is going to be some things that, it's always puts and takes. Because if we don't do this, you got to have, we're going to be renting space somewhere, right? I mean, if the parks don't move out of this building, we got to rent space somewhere because we continue to grow and we don't have any space.
They'll be sitting at the Public Works facility.
Well, and to further that, we'd have to go back to the EDA, the cobblestone, and re-decide what we're going to do with there as far as the public element.
I think it's the best choice.
It's a big investment in our Parks and Rec. And there's going to be a gym there. We'll have our own gym, which we don't have now.
That we can actually control.
Exactly. And event center
And
slash event center.
Event center.
That's pretty big.
It's going to pay for itself in the long run.
So y'all good?
Yep.
And we will take
Yeah,
donations.
so we'll see you back in about 3 months.
Yeah, we sell bricks.
One
sell bricks.
housekeeping item, which I didn't think of until just now, because one of the things you can do in order to reimburse yourself for some of your upfront design costs is you pass a reimbursement resolution that says, we intend to reimburse ourselves with the proceeds of a later financing. And I don't believe we've done that on this project. So You may see that on an upcoming consent agenda. I need to go back and double check, but I don't think we've done that on this one.
I don't believe we
So
have either.
Is it a percentage, or how is it?
No, it's just saying that anything that we spend as part of our planning phase, that we're gonna reimburse ourselves with the debt proceeds.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, we're paying for that out of pocket, like we have to date. So I just wanted to let you know, you may see that.
Okay.
Good thinking.
Good thinking on that. All
Thanks,
right.
Amy.
Strategic,
Does it cap at anything, the payback?
Well, usually in your resolution, you will say what you think the total expected cost is. You usually bump that up a little bit and make it a nice round number, just so you can cover yourself.
And that can be amended as needed.
Yeah, you can always do another resolution. So,
thank you, Amy. Strategic plan, is that you, Kelly, that you're going to cover that?
Actually, Eric, the strategic plan is being, the strategic plan keys are being turned over to Eric, so.
This is the guy that's going to have this plan now.
I thought he was just staying to hear the information being shared.
Okay.
All right.
Yes, I've been handed several keys since one of them I may have lost, which is the one to my actual office, but we're not going to talk about that. But I've been handed several keys. One of them is to the strategic plan. For those of you, well, first of all, greeting Mayor and Board. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come before you this evening. For those of you at home, we're talking about our strategic plan. The strategic plan is a document that lays out the vision and mission for the town, and it's a document that you can access online. And so we welcome you to check that out. That is something that we align all of the things that we do, from our economic development to our planning to our parks and rec, even our public works and public safety. We align it with that vision that was set about 2 years ago. And the strategic plan is something that is developed over a 4-year span, and halfway through that span of time, or that cycle for the strategic plan, we do a renewal. And so on February 4th, we all came together, your board, some town leadership, and also the mayor. And we had breakout sessions, and we had very pointed conversation around our strategic plan and the progress we've made over the last 2 years. And during that time, it was a retreat. It was properly named, or appropriately named, our Future Forward Retreat. We revisited our progress over those last 2 years, and we say, these are the accomplishments that we've made, but there are also some things that we have learned over the last 2 years that we need to take into account for these next 2 years. And so the document that I had submitted to you all with the memo is the language for the strategic plan, updated with respect to the conversations we had, the notes that we took on all those sticky notes and the easel pads, and we kind of came back together and wanted to make sure we captured not just the content of the conversations as far as the written stuff, but also the context from which you all talked about it. And so I had placed that before you for your review, and that language, if you so approve tonight, you'll start seeing be reflected on the placemat in front of you, our website, our upcoming budget manual for this year, and all the different places that we posted or advertise or show our strategic plan. And you'll see changes in some of the work items and our strategies around our departmental work plans as well when we move forward, because there were some things that were added in, like the watershed and all these different things that we'll take into account, not waiting for 2 years from now when we redo our strategic plan, but right now, because it's what's most important to us now. So that is that updated language is included in the memo that I provided you, and let me know if you have any questions about it.
I do have one thing
Yes.
that I think was an oversight, because I think this was in there before, and it's under one of the key focus areas of community connection, foster opportunities to build connections and create civic life. Goal number 1, it talks about doing this through a broad mix of arts, culture, and recreational opportunities. I thought we had something about history in there, Roseville's history. I do not want that lost, because Roseville has a distinct history, and I think somehow that got lost along the way. And I believe that word history used to be there on goal number 1.
Pages you on?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
That
on
is
a la
on
page.
Goal 1 within community connection.
I think it's like 155.
155.
I do remember some notes in and around that and how goal 4 pointed towards history,
Does it?
and maybe it was shifted to be
Okay. As
part
long
of
as
goal 4.
I was looking for it in that first goal, and I didn't even look past it. I was like,
Because
where
goal
did it
4
go?
is create opportunities to recognize the
You're
community's
right. It's
history.
there. Yeah, I just don't want to lose that. I know that we spent a lot of time on that a few years ago, and that's important.
Yeah.
Make sure it's not lost. Thank you so
Should
much.
be Well, it should have already been on here, right, somewhere.
Yeah, it should have been in the goal.
Good. Any other thoughts for Eric?
Somebody sent another email. No.
Any other thoughts? You
Good
need
job.
us to pass this? Is that what you need,
And so I was just looking for your recommendation. If I will read the recommendation, then I put it because it took me about 20 minutes to craft it. Staff is recommending that the board adopt the updated strategic plan language.
Okay.
And so that language will be rolled into the actual strategic plan. And we say the updated language because we won't be updating the strategic plan as a whole for 2 years, but these are just tweaks that we made as a result of our conversation.
Well,
So I have a motion on that recommendation.
So moved.
All right.
a
Like you
second.
just read.
All right, I think,
Second.
think-
Whoever.
no,
I think it was him.
Second.
Dan seconded, I think, first. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Appreciate it.
Wow.
Thank you. And
Thank
I
y'all
just
so
want to say, and I know you didn't do it alone, but I know you had a big part in it. For all the staff that had, that worked on it, the retreat was great. Appreciate all the hard work. You and the rest of the staff, Kelly, all of you, the whole staff did a really good job on that. I like the location, it was pretty nice, so thanks.
Thank you so much.
We can
Take
always use it. It's always available.
I
so.
loved it. I like the food too.
Yeah.
I'm a picky eater, so I appreciate the diversity of food options that were offered. Thank you, Kelly, and staff. Thank you so much, Eric. Great job.
I clap for Amy. Make sure we are always taken care of.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank
Good
you.
job, thank you.
And I would say your keychain is just going to get bigger and bigger. so
Your keychain.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Next item, I'll tell you what, we've been an hour and 45 minutes. Let's take a quick 10 minutes. Be back at, I guess, 8:55, and we'll start and pick up. I think we wanted to do an update from the ARC money. So we'll pick up on that when we get back. So
Forgot about that one.
the ARC money, the
Oh, yeah,
American-
yeah. They provide money too for affordable housing.
Yeah, you can do 4.
Paul, I cannot remember that freaking passcode again. And
right.
Call back to order the Roseville Town Board meeting. Amy, I think you're going to be up next, so just come on up and give us an update.
Sure.
Make sure your mics are on. I always forget to turn mine on after the break.
I think we're good here. Okay. So our next item is talk about an update about the American Rescue Plan Act. We did talk about this again briefly a few weeks ago at the retreat, but just wanted to go over it one more time and go a little bit more in depth than what we've talked about before. So again, this is a federal legislation that was signed about a year ago. It does contain, and I'm going to start big picture, but these are going to be real brief, but just want to give you the big picture, and then we'll funnel down to Roseville. So this is $1.9 trillion. Went for a variety of things. Some of it went to direct payments to American taxpayers. There's some significant programs, community programs, some economic stimulus in there. But the piece that we want to talk about is this one right here with the star. This is the state and local government subsidies, that $350 billion.
Wait, can you go back for one hot second? I just didn't get to see. Okay. Okay. All right.
Good? Okay, so we're going to talk about that piece of the pie with the star, state and local government allocations. So they have allocated money directly to the states, directly to counties, and then they directly to cities. They classify cities into two different groups. Some are the metropolitan cities, they're called, or entitlement cities, and then there's other cities that have under 50,000 population non-entitlement units, or NEUs, and that is where Rolesville falls in. So $705 million have been allocated to those NEUs, including the town of Rolesville. Roseville has received, or will receive, when it's all said and done, $2.7 million. We received it in two tranches. So we have already received the first half last July, and then the second half is due to come in probably around July of this year. Depends on when the allocations actually get made, but somewhere, give or take, around July. These funds, under the legislation, must be committed by December 31st of 2024. That seemed a lot further off a year ago. Gets closer all the time. So that means the money has to be contractually obligated, encumbered, but somehow committed for a particular use. And then you have another 2 years to actually spend those dollars. So it has to be spent by December 31st, 2026. Now, there is some reporting that's required with this. Our first report to the Treasury is due on April 30th of this year, so just about 2 months away. Now, if you remember when we first started talking about this, they had what was called an interim rule, where the Treasury was tasked with giving some guidance to the recipients of this money about what they could spend the money on. And so we were given some broad categories that had some limitations as far as a town like Rolesville, where we do not have a water and sewer system. State law limits some of our broadband activity. We don't, since in North Carolina, counties do public health, we didn't really have a lot of public health expenditures, so a lot of those categories were a little difficult for us. Since that interim rule has come about, and the guidance we were getting from all of our statewide partners was, be patient, just wait, let's wait for the final rule. Well, the final rule has been issued now. And so they have tweaked those same categories, but made one substantial change that's really important for Roseville. So they have put together these 4 categories. Again, they're pretty much substantially the same to what they were before, but the big one that's important to us is this one about replace lost revenue. Under the interim rule, we were going to have to do some complicated calculations in order to show whether or not and how much revenue we had lost due to the impact of the pandemic. In the final rule, they have made this much simpler. And they have said,
They gave us a standard
free
deduction.
space, up to for $10 million, we just assume you've lost revenue. You do not have to justify anything to us, sort of like a standard deduction, right, on your taxes. It's a given. And so that's what they've done. So as Rolesville, getting 2.7 million, we are well within that $10 million threshold. So it doesn't mean we get 10 million, that would be nice. But what it means is we can claim up to 10 million. So some communities in Wake County who did receive more than 10 million, right? And let's say somebody received 12 million, they can claim that first 10 million as lost revenue, and then they have to find something in these other categories to spend the additional 2 million, okay? So just in case you hear others talking about ARP and trying to spend in some of these other categories, that's probably why, because they have an allocation that's greater and they have to go out there and figure out how to meet these categories. But the guidance for small towns, anybody who's gotten 10 million or less, pretty much a no-brainer. If you got less than 10 million, the lost revenue is the way to go.
I have a quick question for you. I was just told this today, so I don't really know a lot about it. So I didn't know that ARP funds could be used for affordable housing.
So,
and that would fall under the category, right, for disproportionately impacted communities,
so,
unless that's already be existing.
well, so here's the thing. So let's stick with that lost revenue for just a minute, because all of the town's 2.7 million allocation could be claimed as lost revenue. Lost revenue, those monies can be spent on any government function. So if state law permits us to do that, we can do it. So you're not restricted to having to come up with these categories, okay? Now, the guidance we get, this is a one-time allocation of funds, right? And so you want to be careful that you don't get involved into programs that have ongoing expenditures. You probably wouldn't use this to go hire 10 personnel because the costs for them are going to continue well into the future. You're going to use a one-time infusion of cash for something that has a one-time expense. And as we've been talking for several weeks, months, we have a great capital improvement program with a lot of needs. And so from a staff perspective, that seems like a good opportunity. There may be some other things here or there that you want to do, but a good use of some one-time funding might be something like contributing towards your capital program.
The Davenport charts, it hadn't been included in any of those up to this point, right?
So we did put it in the model, but we did not use the funds for anything. When we first did the model, we were still under the interim rule, and so we did not allocate that fund to any of those projects. So when you looked at that model, knowing now that we have 2.7 million to contribute towards some of that capital program, it makes your model look even better in terms of its affordability. Okay, so before I move on to the next part, so all this is really important before I go to the next part where things start getting a little complicated. So I want to make sure we get any questions out on this part before we take it to another level.
So what was your response to my question when I asked about the affordable housing part? I know you said your revenue.
Right, so
but it can be used.
Because you can use the lost revenue on anything, you can, sure, you could use it on anything.
All right, I just asked it. Thank you.
Yep. We're not, unlike some of these municipalities that have large amounts, we're not restricted to certain pots of expenditure.
And you said it's a one-shot deal, right?
This is a one-time allocation.
So
yes.
if you, so you can't go back and say, oh, can I just edit or not edit, but what do you call it?
Revise?
Say it again? Yes.
Right, once you pick the lost revenue category, it is an irrevocable decision.
Gotcha.
But I can't, I mean, again, speaking as staff, I can't think of any reason why you would, because you can use it for anything, there's really no reason you wouldn't.
Right.
You would want to do that.
I mean, for more money is what I'm saying.
Yeah, there would not be any.
Oh, that's what I was
More in
saying.
the pot that's willing to.
That's what I was saying.
We have some great projects that they can be a part of.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, thank you.
All right, so, okay, so we're good. So, next thing we want to talk about is that because it's federal money always comes with some obligations.
Of course.
Right? And so this money is no exception. in the final rule, it talks about how the recipients must follow what's called uniform guidance. And this is, years ago, all the different federal agencies had their own rules about procurement and conflicts of interest and things like that. And so several years ago, they consolidated it all and said, look, here's a uniform guidance for spending federal funds. And it's fairly comprehensive. So again, you won't be able to see this very well. But the idea here is, let's just focus on the center one, ignore the top header on it. But there's a list here of different policies that if you're going to spend these federal funds, you have to adopt these policies and follow them. So things like financial management and internal controls, conflict of interest, eligibility, allowable costs, procurement, program income, subaward. There's all of these policies required under the uniform guidance. Okay? So keep that in mind as we walk through the next part. You have to adopt these policies and you have to follow them when you're spending the funds. So let's switch gears for just a moment. And let's talk about a concept called supplanting funds. So normally when you receive federal funds, like a federal grant, you can't supplant local money. For example, let's say we were going to have a motorcycle unit to patrol our bypass. And you put that in your budget. And you said, we're going to hire 5 officers and we're going to buy 5 motorcycles and we're committing to do this. And you put that in your budget and the chief starts implementing it. A couple of months into his implementation, he finds out that there's a federal grant available. And he applies for it, he gets it. It was a really quick turnaround. And he got it. And then he tries to use that money instead of using the town money. And the feds say, no, you can't do that. You can't supplant, right? You can't not spend money, local money that you were going to spend on this program and use ours instead. We want our program to be new for you, okay? That's typically how federal money and federal grants work. With these ARPA funds, that rule does not apply. You can supplant funds. You can supplant local money. So even if you had already planned to do it, it's okay. You can switch things around, and now we're not going to use the town's money. We're going to use the federal money instead. They have explicitly said that's okay. Okay, so let's look at an example. So for example, the green, the dollar sign, that's the federal money. It would go and directly buy a community center. Okay? So let's say that we decided we wanted to use ARP funds to go and build this community center. Remember these uniform guidance pieces. You have to follow federal procurement law when you're building that facility. If that community center generates any income, you have to send that to the federal government, and you have to have a policy that says so. If you ever sell that piece of property, you have to send the proceeds of that back to the feds because you used federal money to build it. Okay, so again, this federal money comes with some responsibilities. So what we're hearing from our partners, School of Government, the League of Municipalities, the Association of County Commissioners, Treasurer's Office, all of them are saying, what you should consider doing is supplanting the funds. So rather than using the money to go buy a facility or buy equipment that comes with all of these rules, take the route of easiest administration, okay? And the thing that is the easiest to administer is salaries and benefits. And since you can supplant, what they're suggesting is that you would use the ARP monies to pay for employee salary and benefits, which then frees up your general fund money, and then you can use that general fund money for anything you want, and there's no timeline or deadlines when you have to encumber it or when you have to spend it.
So that doesn't mean giving big raises.
Right. So now I have looked at this briefly in terms of the town, given the amount of money we've received, what's our payroll. You can go backwards and look at salaries from, I think it's March 7th of 2021 through December 31st, 2024. But given the amount of money that we have and the size of our payroll, we should be able to fully account for all of our 2.7 million in one fiscal year. So we could do, July 1 of 2021 through the end of this fiscal year, the year we're in now. We can account for all of that funding. We would replace the general fund money with that, and then you have excess general fund balance at the end of the year of 2.7 million, and you can use that for any activity with no deadline. And importantly, if you look at this chart, this is where this comes in important for all three of these. This shows you the different uniform guidance you would need under three different scenarios. If you're purchasing equipment, you need those policies that you have to adopt and follow. The middle one, if you partner with a nonprofit, those are the policies you have to adopt and follow. But local government personnel, far fewer policies to adopt and comply with. And it's the non-compliance with those policies is where people usually get into trouble with getting the money pulled back by the federal government. So the fewer policies you have, less administration, hopefully less likely of them clawing that money back at a future date if there's an audit. So I'm gonna let you all absorb that for a while. But this is the guidance that we're currently getting, again, from School of Government, from the League, the Association of County Commissioners. And I think there's some expectation that a lot of folks are going to be going this route of the supplanting, because when they're talking to us, they're saying, well, we know you're going to take the salaries and benefits, but tell us what you're really going to spend it on, right? Because they also want to know where the money's ultimately going to be spent. And then just one of the things they're also encouraging is when you do decide what your final project is, to make sure that you publicize that and share that with the public and let them know this was part of the American Rescue Plan that made this equipment, this facility, whatever it is, made it a reality. All right, so some things to be answered, right? There's three kind of steps here. We'll probably, again, I'm just putting these out to you. We'll probably address these as we go through the budget process from a staff perspective and make some recommendations. I think the first one is pretty straightforward and easy. Or do you take the lost revenue option? If you have under $10 million, it's a pretty straightforward and easy answer there. Are we going to take the approach of supplanting with the salary and benefit costs to reduce the administrative burden with the how we use these funds? And then finally, the big question is what's the ultimate use of those funds? Where do you want to use this? Again, we have a solid capital improvement program that could benefit from the infusion of these funds. Is that how you want to use that? I know it's a lot to take in. And we'll cover it again. I'm still trying to get some clarity on this April 30th reporting. So those large cities, the entitlement cities, they already had to report on January 31st. And in there, when they reported, they did have to say what category they were going to use, but they were not being held to it. It wasn't a permanent decision. And so I'm still trying to get some clarity over these. There's a lot of web calls weekly. We get updates on what's happening with from our partners. And I'm trying to get clarity on whether we have to report that for sure April 30th. I suspect not. I suspect they're going to treat us very similar to the large units where we have some time to make that irrevocable decision. But again, that's not the hard decision. So, any questions to wrap things up?
Good information. Thank you so much. I learned a couple of new words tonight. While we are mulling this over, can you share that presentation with us so that we have it? I like visual.
Yep, be glad to.
Thank you. I appreciate that. When it comes to CIP, though, I will say we have a scientific process to go through. Like, our CIP projects, there's so many capital improvement projects, right? So it's kind of like us deciding eeny, meeny, miny, mo, big old scientific process. So many options out there. But thank you for sharing that. Sorry, Ron.
Good. Anybody else? Any questions? Well, thank you. And you said we'll be, it sounds like if you supplant it, you could do it this year and be done with it. Is that kind of what?
That way we get everything tied up.
Even wait for next budget year to do that. We would go ahead and do that, and then that would clear the funds up to go into the CIP. And I do think, you know, we had the discussion at the retreat and all about the CIP. But I do think we need to probably have at least one more discussion, you know, like Michelle's saying, you know, do we want to add something to the CIP, like affordable housing, I think is what she was talking about. Buying a property for, you know, Habitat for Humanity or something like that. That's not in the CIP at the moment, so, you know, I think it's worthy for this board to have a discussion probably on, and it may not be next year. It may be, you know, in the future years or something. Are you guys on the same thought? I mean, you brought it up.
I am, no, you said it very well, Ronnie.
I agree, definitely.
Well, we'll have more conversation about this as we go through our budget preview on March 29th.
Amy, are all those policies already in place that you would need for are any of them already in place for?
Oh, so actually the procurement rules, we've already integrated that into our purchasing policy. So I think we're probably okay there. But based on these calls, because the School of Government is coming up with some templates of some of these policies, because, I mean, there's 400 and some units of government in North Carolina, all going to have to adopt these policies. And so they're coming up with some templates for us.
That's helpful.
Yeah, but again, you're looking at units of all kind of, you know, you're looking at a 2,000 population city and a 200,000 population city. So there's going to be some tweaking. So there's some of these we might already meet in our current policies, like conflict of interest in the purchasing policy may already meet this. It's just going to take some combing through and figuring out what we need, and that'll be something that will be coming to you, you know, in the next few months.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Very good job. You presented it very well. I think we all, you know, understand what you're saying, and I think it is something to be said about let's try to make it easy for ourselves rather than bureaucratic. And I think before these last rules came out, it was going to be very bureaucratic, and also I know some towns are talking about not able to use it in some cases. So, you know,
Really?
yeah, I mean, it was very limited in what you could use it for.
We were very much strolling.
Yeah.
So more of the progressive or more of the advanced?
Yeah, it's a lot of things we don't have, you know, like we can't do wideband, we can't, you know, it's a lot of things that they
A lot of
say we
social
could use it for.
services.
Yeah.
We just don't have to use a stormwater or something like
Right.
that. So it's really good. I mean, I think it's great to give us that, I call it standard deduction for small towns to $10 million. I mean, we didn't need that much, but that's good.
What'd you say?
We only got 2.7.
Oh, I thought you said we didn't need that much.
No, we didn't need that much standard deduction, that's kind of what I'm saying. Because, you know, if it was a $5 million done, that's just as good, but.
Mayor, can I just lay out there what I'm thinking, just so you know, and then you can think about it, is I will probably be thinking about how you use the cash now to save on your debt, to free up cash for the future of anything else you might be thinking about. So there are projects you have in the queue that could use this infusion of cash that you had planned to use debt for. And I'm not a debt guy. So that's where I'm going to be thinking when I come back to you, just so we can talk individually or such, but I've been thinking about that. And that, remember, that plays out long run.
Yeah.
That plays out then over time. You can use whatever that you were going to debt for other things. So so I'm just going to probably looking at how do we cash flow this a little bit more on things that we thought we were going to have to do some debt on initially in the short term. So and then allow these other things that we're thinking about possibly play out over time further. So that's just some food for thought, and I'll spell those out further as we talk. Or if you want to chat with me what I'm thinking about, I'll let you know. Does that make sense?
It does.
Good.
It does. So it gives us a lot more flexibility, I think, so, less debt we spend now, the more, I guess, bandwidth we have in the future is a good way to put it. So appreciate that. Good report, Amy. Thank you for updating us on that. Communications from town attorney.
Board members, you may have heard already that Wake County has adopted a non-discrimination ordinance that went into effect February 1st for the unincorporated portions of the county. The county has requested of each of the managers and each of the municipal attorneys to take a look at an interlocal agreement that would extend the enforceability of the non-discrimination ordinance into each one of the cities. That's also something that is coming from Wake County Economic Development as a request that be considered. I wanted to let you know that that is something that I have taken a look at, Kelly has seen, and the municipal attorneys are now discussing as a group. And I hope to bring this back to you either at our work session in 2 weeks for perhaps action in April, or it'll go a cycle later, and you could take a look at it perhaps for action in May at your regular meeting. That's all I have.
What are your thoughts on it so far?
My thoughts on it so far are that we've made a lot of progress in terms of simplifying the interlocal agreement, and hopefully can bring to you something that, if it is what the town wants to do, at least you'll understand what you're getting yourselves into.
Right. So, and I haven't read it, so I don't know exactly. I've heard rumors and stuff. Sometimes the devil's in the details of the sauce. Are you going to be able to share enough for the board to have a feeling of what's in the details? What makes up the sauce, in other words, it's a lot of rumors out there that it's a lot of stuff underneath that seems maybe more appealing on top than it does when you dig down in the details. Is that fair to say?
My task is to make sure that I've dug all the way in so that I can bring to you something that you can be confident that if you wish to adopt something, you are going in eyes open, and the manager and I can bring you a recommendation.
Got you. That's kind of what I think would be good for the board to.
What if we decided not to go along with it? Is there a consequence to that?
There is no non-discrimination policy right now. We have an internal non-discrimination policy with regard to our contracting as to what we require of those who wish to contract with Rolesville, but there is not an external enforcement mechanism where Rolesville seeks to enforce non-discrimination on the private sector. Yeah. That's what this is about.
And that's one of the details that I found to be not quite clear. Who enforces it? Is Wake County enforces it, or are they going to require the town to enforce these policies?
As proposed, Wake County would enforce this.
Okay. Because I've heard both ways on that.
Liking.
And
I guess we'll have to wait.
Got you. That's good. Anything else, Attorney?
That's it, Mayor.
Thank you. Communications from town manager?
First, I want to thank Chef Dave for taking on and finding the cookbook for that, because when we first were presented it, there was a lot of work that had to be done. So the attorneys have really done a good work on it over the last month. And so thanks, Dave, for your efforts on it, and everybody else, all the other municipal attorneys. March 15th, your next meeting is two parts. Mm-hmm. You'll start at 6 here, and at this time we have scheduled the pay plan presentation. I don't know if that'll take a full hour. We'll see. I doubt it, but it'll take a fair amount of time for you to go through it and ask questions and such. And then at 7 o'clock is the start of your joint planning board meeting. We have, as staff, kind of developed an agenda that I think flows pretty well, and is going to hit most all the topics you've been talking about and have a chance to talk amongst your planning board about it. Everything from what are kind of the next LDO amendments to the bigger picture items of TIAs to everything you've been talking about. So I think it's easily a 2-hour agenda, probably.
I had a specific question that I asked you the other day. Is that question going to be asked or tackled that evening?
Can you remind me the question?
You don't remember, Kelly?
He was trying, I'm trying to remember, when I had said, like, I know the planning board has their job, and they base it on, making sure the i's are dotted, t's are crossed. But some of the, like, I'm very grateful that I was not there for the meeting last night.
Yes.
Because there are some cases that come, like, when there's a rezoning. Are they looking at it as, okay, that can be done, I think the board should say yes. But if it's something that the board is trying not, like, say, say, what was that Scarborough property, as an example? So if the goal is, and I'm not saying that it is, I'm using an example. If the goal is to put apartments and townhomes closer to the center of town, and this is something that's further away from town, from the center of town, are they looking at it as, well, it's meeting the requirements even with the rezoning?
Right.
You know what I mean? And then you bring it to the board, and they're like, well, wait a second, why?
So it's like either objective, or looking at it objectively, like, this goes with the rules and the laws and everything.
Right.
Or this is what the board would
Right,
prefer.
right. So that's why I think sometimes in the meetings, and when I hear them, and they're doing their job like they're supposed to,
Right.
but sometimes it's a direct conflict of what we're trying to accomplish as a board, especially in a rezoning case. So how do we handle that?
I know that there is one of the topics we've talked about is making sure we talk about responsibilities. Staff, planning board, town board, and in that context, we can talk about that, Michelle? And what do we all use to make those decisions? And how some of these topics, like you just brought up density, right? Is on the agenda. And that may be a bigger question that you all want to start talking about is, what is your density policy? For just a big general question, but
Right.
drill down to that. So that you're all your documents are in alignment with what you want and such like that. So you're probably not going to answer that question that night, but you're going to start talking about how do we get alignment of what you as policymakers want the planning board to use in helping give you your recommendations you need to implement your policies.
Okay, so for example, again, so if you have a project that is saying that it's going to be a PUD, and they're looking to build residential first and not commercial, and then our conversation here, and it may not be in writing, is, well, we want to see some of that commercial take place before you do all the residential like you did with the villages and leave. So if they're seeing that as a planning board and it all makes sense to them, then I'm thinking, I don't know this, but they would say, okay, we're saying approve this plan. But then when we see it, we're like, okay, so when do you plan on starting the commercial? And their response could be, well, in 5, 10, or 15 years.
So again, we're trying to figure out what's the disconnect and how do you connect.
But that conversation should start sooner than later because,
Sure, I don't disagree, but I think we can talk a little bit about that. And then what do we need to do to connect? It's not just that night conversation. You're gonna have to kind of say, what are we missing, disconnecting on, and then start mending your policies, procedures of what you want and how do you connect it. So we can talk about how you identify those and what they are. They will take some time.
Right.
You have to sort through it.
right, and I know it won't
Yeah.
be a one-time conversation, but I just see that more so now being on the planning board. And I'm not knocking it, but then when I get here and I hear some of the comments that are made, like with the whys, I see why the planning board did what they did, but I also see why the commissioners are like, well, this is not really in line with what we've talked about in the past. And then after a while, it gets lost because it happened so many months or years ago that you don't recognize it until another case like that comes forward. So I know it's going to take a while, but I just think that that needs to be brought to light without trying to persuade the planning board, which I'm not saying to do that, so that they won't feel that way and it won't seem like we are doing that in their
It's not really
decision.
persuading.
Right.
Again, it's how do you connect?
Right, I get it.
Yeah.
I'm just repeating myself just to make sure that
Yeah.
you all understand what I'm saying and that, you know, I get it's going to take time.
Yep.
So,
And you're going to probably have to actually kind of figure out what are your top priorities, because there's probably a few disconnects.
right.
And you may have to say, we want to tackle the top 3,
Mm-hmm.
and then get on with it and see how we
And
can-
even like the traffic impact studies, that's a huge one.
That's right.
Because again, and which by the way, and I know someone had asked this before, but I'm not sure who or what, if we all did in one form or another, how to see the traffic, how the traffic plan is going to really play out, because when someone comes before us, and I think I'm getting a little bit off task here, but I mean, off the topic, but when someone comes before us from this plan that was created 4, 5, 6 years ago, and this was their traffic impact study, then you have another group that's here, and then it all builds up. But when we're talking to that one developer, even for the planning board, we're just looking at those numbers for that project, and which I know we're supposed to, but at the end of the day, when you look at that whole big puzzle, it's like, oh my God, this is more than I remember from the previous studies. So again, that's that same topic of how do we make that disconnect no longer a
And I
disconnect?
think you'll probably start seeing a preview in 2 weeks also of Meredith's budget proposal to do some of those items too.
Cool. All right, thank you.
Yeah, along those lines, and I think it's gonna come up because I gave you some feedback when you asked for, things. I really think the recommendation planning board should have more substance in it about the consistency of a land use plan, the consistency to our transportation plan, the consistency to our greenway plan. The planning department, they can't control that, really. I mean, but when it gets to the planning board, if it doesn't have the connectivity that our transportation plan says it should have, then the planning board should have that discussion and say, are we going to recommend to the board to accept this without having, your transportation plan followed or your greenway plan followed, or even consistent with your comprehensive land use plan? In other words, I'm not sure those things are detailed out in the decision that it'd be good to see that detailed out in the decision the planning board makes, that, in other words, it come to us, everything is, and I believe if they decided we don't go with transportation plan, that they would say the reason why. We still recommend approval of this, even though it doesn't go with the comprehensive land use plan because of so-and-so.
Yeah, Ronnie, I will say that sometimes, those different plans will come up, and, sometimes there's so many plans your head spins, but it does come up, but I don't really think it comes up as when they say to move forward, because it is consistent with this plan, that plan, and that
Right.
plan. That doesn't really come up, and if it does, I apologize, I missed it. But sometimes some things are referenced from the more experienced people on the board. Not to say that the ones that are newer on the board don't know what's going on, because I do believe they do, but it doesn't come up enough to really say that it is doing exactly what you mentioned. It's not referencing each of those plans in the project. So when we get it, it's like, I'm giving you what you asked for, but did you give it to planning too? Or did it not come up, so you got past that one, and got your project pushed forward to the commissioners, and now we're sitting here for 2 and 3 hours going back and forth.
Yeah.
Good point, Robbie.
I think it's a good step you're making here of us meeting together and kind of talking it out. Because really, it starts with the planning department, because these plans that come in, anybody put whatever they want to in there. But the planning department will recognize when something is not consistent And if it gets through everything and the developer won't change it, it needs to get all the way us with a recommendation of whether, we should approve it because it doesn't match our plans, if that makes sense, David, you got a comment on that, anything, or? I see the gears turning a little bit there.
No, sir.
Because this is okay, what we're talking about, right? To get the recommendations from the planning board and stuff, right?
This will be an excellent topic for your next meeting during the joint session.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, the planning board they are really swift, so I'm not saying that they're not.
Oh, they've
But
got a good planning board.
They really are, and I learn a lot from them every time they speak, except for yesterday when I got kicked out. But other than that, they are really, really good. They're on top of
How do you
things.
want to hold that session? Do you want to be up there on the dais, or do you want to come down on the floor
Who?
and the tables up?
I don't think we should be up there. I don't
Do
think.
you want us to set up like a square down here
Yes.
and have you all sit around the tables?
I think so.
Oh, you talking about the setup?
The
Yeah,
setup.
for
I
that
think
meeting.
everybody down there in a big square.
Or a circle or oval or something.
Yeah, kind of like, and I don't know the numbers, kind of like when we do the meeting with the fire board
Right.
people,
Okay.
I just don't want my
I think that's gonna be better for you all to work that way, so we'll do that.
It'd be hard to televise that probably, but, we'll figure it out.
Just do what we can.
Have to get the hardest thing to get the microphones down there, right?
We'll do what I can. I think you're just gonna have to, I think it's very important that the setting's right and it's better, and we'll just try and figure out how we can get the best sound we can, so.
Yeah,
It may not be great, but it's gonna,
But I think for us, it will be better if we're all sitting there and we're not sitting up here,
Right.
because you sit at this level,
that's right.
I think the perspective is, it's a little different, like a hierarchy, and it shouldn't be, especially with
Right.
what they do.
Okay,
for the
we'll
board.
set it up and do whatever we can to try and make it for the viewing public as good as possible, but it's really gonna be for you all, so we'll do what we can.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe we can rent some microphones or something, I'm not sure, you figure that out, because.
And then enjoy your night tonight, because you do have land use items coming up in April, May, and June. And I want you to think about this meeting flow in context of that, because you'll have a longer meeting in the future. So we might want to just kind of, Mayor, I think you
Yeah.
kind of go back and watch the film a little bit on this one, see if you want to, how you did and everything. But, and then the April work session, I have penciled in, it's not on the sheet, but again, you have talked about doing DEI training and board procedure conversation. Do you want to commit a Tuesday night to that, or do you want to set that aside for a special meeting?
Yeah.
Do you have a preference, or go ahead and schedule for April and see if that stays for now, for that April work session, which would be the third Tuesday? I don't have it on the top of my head. Or do you want to set aside different
You got
time?
the budget presentation on there, right? I'm looking at it, April 19th.
Yeah, that'd be, so we'll do a lot of work on the 29th. The April meeting probably will be less on the budget. It won't be as long as that night, 29th. So you could probably go ahead and spend a couple hours on some training if you want to, or if it's you.
You said DEI and what else? I'm sorry.
And board procedures, the purple book.
Yeah, I think that should be a separate meeting or a special meeting. I don't want
Yeah,
to say
you can-
special.
you want to do this different night?
I just think that we
Different
have
days.
so much sometimes. To me, a work session, you should be able to talk and have conversation and discussion. And if we're being presented with so much, you don't have time to digest it and really, talk through the information, to me.
Yeah, I agree. One thing, I'm not exactly sure, Kelly, I use this last page, and I think last year we had everything listed out, even if it wasn't scheduled for a particular day, it was kind of
Yeah.
at the bottom, it said
Yeah.
all these things are coming
Yeah,
up.
we haven't really, we've been kind of watching the land use, and we haven't really slotted them yet, but they're coming. So your next one will be more full.
Yeah, but I was thinking at one time we were putting them on here, even if they won't slot it, they were down at the bottom, said these are coming.
Yeah, we did have that, and that list kind of got chiseled away. So we really don't have a list of items, but we could, those are two good examples we could put back on. to remind us that they're out there, so.
It gave me a
Yeah,
knowing what's
perspective.
coming up, because really looking at what's there now is not very much details at all.
No, we cleaned it up for the start of the year, but now we need to build it back up.
Right.
So,
I agree.
All of March, April, May, and June would be at the bottom. Is that that's what you're saying, Ronnie?
No, what it was at one time, it was like this, but it had, at the bottom, it had everything that's coming up, but
Yeah.
we didn't know exactly what month it was on fitting.
we call it the
like the
bucket,
parking
right?
lot.
It was the bucket, the parking lot, right?
Right.
And so we've kind of eliminated the parking lot, refreshed it. We could put these two on the parking lot, and then we can get them scheduled. But I'm hearing, for purposes of discussion tonight, do you want me to try and get an April session, special session for these two items?
I vote for a special.
I do too.
Morning,
I vote.
Listen, if it's in the morning, you know,
Donuts.
not before 8 o'clock.
Kidding. She likes the 6 a.m. session.
I'll let the mayor decide.
I'm okay with
Yeah.
8
I was
o'clock
trying
at
to look,
least.
I'm looking at the schedule here.
Is there a
You don't have to decide tonight, we can just do it.
April, we already have 3 meetings in there.
We do.
That's the only thing I'm thinking about.
You have dinner.
In May, there's the, what's
the
the
dinner.
name?
The dinner.
No, the going away.
Going away.
It's not with Triangle. Count, what is it? In Wilmington,
Oh, the summit thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we have that in May as well, so.
In April.
We'll fill that schedule out again and see.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll talk about it.
Well, while we're putting things on the calendar, I do want to, us to consider, if we could, Mayor, I think we need a work session on affordable housing. I don't want that to get lost in the shuffle. And I know it's not immediate, because I know you're going to get some more information. We have some more information to get. But I do think that's a good work session topic for us to talk
And they're
about
willing to
that.
come in and talk with us.
Yeah. I think that's a good topic to cover. And Kelly did send us I think it's the Apex plan.
And Wake Forest, what they're working on.
So I looked briefly at the Apex
Ronnie's
plan. It
working
was
on theirs.
long, it's
Yeah.
long, but good idea if we could kind of go through some of that before we even talk, because it probably has some great stuff that we can mimic or at least consider. So I'd love us to do
Yeah,
that.
they're willing
it's
to talk to us
some
as well.
partners can do a good job of letting us know where everybody's at. I know Triangle J's, I think the league does a little bit of that.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
You know a couple.
I just didn't realize there was so much funding available for it.
But I think back to Michelle's point, Commissioner Medley, I'm trying to call you out by Commissioner Medley's point about the planning board and being ready in the planning department, being ready when folks come to us. Everybody has a different definition of affordable housing. If I hear one more time, yeah, we're going to build townhouses, they're $360,000. That's not my definition of workforce housing. So if we are not giving them a definition, they're defining it for us. And so I think we have to be more proactive in defining that. Otherwise, we're spinning our wheels, and when they come, and we're disappointed.
Okay. Anything else, town manager?
No, sir.
Anything from the board? I know April had a question that we didn't answer about the fire department. Are you guys, be another meeting, are you guys open to meeting with the fire department and let them do the presentation? If it's just a presentation that they want to do, April, wonder if the assistant chiefs could just come here to work session, do a 30-minute presentation or something. Was it a value for all us talking about it or something?
It was, they wanted us to come there, they would provide food, and then they would present to us.
So it's more like interacting also.
That, yes, just to get to know you and let's sit down together. That's the impression.
Yeah,
I
that's a
got.
little different than just a presentation then.
Right.
And they always have great food, I'm just saying.
So it sounds like that's a yay. What about the rest? I know April and Dan has not seen this, I don't think, what they.
I saw it at the thing.
Oh, you did
So
see it
Dan
already?
hasn't seen it, yeah.
So Mayor, you're probably, if all goes well, you're probably 3 months out or 2 months to 3 months out from maybe a draft effort on agreement between both parties also.
And the county?
That might be just as equally, just as important to have at that time also.
So when will we have the budget? I mean, in other words, get the budget behind us and
Well,
maybe
I'm
do this
just,
meeting?
and I'm thinking that we still probably want to get together as a group and continue working towards unification. And so it may be.
Two boards, or just?
No, I'm saying the small group, and then eventually have a work product in front of us when the two boards meet to talk about not only the growth, but how the unification could start working towards something if we are.
Will we be ready for that by May?
I don't know. I'm just thinking about, besides just one topic, but it's up to you all if you just want to go for one topic.
I think doing a listening check, April, maybe go back and tell them the board is kind of open to meeting with them. It may be April, or well, actually, May timeframe sounds like.
Is that with the county too, or just the fire department?
Just the fire department, I think. Their board and our board.
Oh, just
Which
their
means
board?
it's an open session.
Just their board, okay.
So just to clarify, our work sessions now all start at 6 PM. Am I clear on that? And so is it a possibility when we don't have a super heavy schedule for our first meeting, to do a 6 o'clock kind of start time for some of these meetings too?
You talking about our regular night meeting?
If it's not a
I
super
think-
heavy agenda, but if it's a whole bunch of stuff
I
that's going
think
to
we
keep
would
us
have
to
to
10
follow up on that, because I think the regular meeting may be designated as 7 o'clock in some document or something.
No, I'm saying if we needed to stick a meeting in
Oh, you
there,
do-
if we could do a 6 o'clock meeting before the regular meeting
Do
some
like a
nights.
meeting,
Oh,
right?
versus doing it all at 7 o'clock.
Do a mini
No, the
work
regular
session?
meeting at 7, but if
Right.
we had something like Kelly was saying,
Yeah,
finding some time.
we've done that before, I think.
As long as the regular meeting is not 4,000 items.
Right.
Kelly.
Then I'd put you to 2:30. Okay.
Okay. So you want to hear something that has nothing to do with Roseville? Raleigh just approved a 40-story high-rise in downtown Raleigh. So I just hope that we never get beyond our little 3 and 4 story.
You said 40?
40 story, like 39, 40.
Is it workforce housing?
Okay, so I don't know.
Where is it?
It's in Raleigh, but I'm just saying, I did say it had nothing to do with Roseville, so but I'm relating it to Roseville, because when I drive down Main Street and I see that 3-story building there, it saddens me a little to see it, because I'm just hoping that they're not gonna be popping up sporadically up and down Main Street, because you then start losing a little bit of that little country Main Street road. Right, that's gonna be the next thing, I'm sure. So, but anyway.
Huge.
I think that's all I had.
40 stories, right? Yes, okay, I'm sorry.
We'll do a 39.
Stop it.
I moved it. We
I think that's
adjourn.
all I had. Any closing comments from the board?
Sir.
Great meeting. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, staff, everybody. Derek, thanks for coming. Appreciate, and we got a lot of people, not to pick on Derek, but we got a lot of people like Derek that just volunteers and do stuff for the town, and Derek is one of them. I mean, you would be surprised how much he spends doing stuff and does a lot of different stuff. So, but there's a lot of people just like that. Thanks to citizens that do that. Any other thing? All right, well, we're going to get out 10 minutes early. Thank you, board, and we'll be adjourned.
10 minutes early.